originating within the society. People are coming up with their ideas, with their dreams. And you taking their dreams, you regulate what they can dream.
What do you mean taking? What do you think I would take from them?
Again, what I try to say is when people are motivated by creating things. They having their dreams. They want to harvest what they invested in.
Elon, please. Let me express it a little bit differently. I'm not going to take anything. I'm going to imagine a state that, when it wants, produces little pieces of paper. And it tells everyone, this is our paper. It means whatever we want it to mean. And guess what? Around here, you can only use this paper to transact and stuff. We won't take any of your stuff. And we are giving you the paper. We just send it to you. Here you go. A stack full of paper. Have fun at this carnival. You can spend your time doing whatever you want. Why exactly are you saying that person will not be both happy and motivated?
Having a central bank which creating a paper which is a replacement for actual value is already socialism, right? You understand it, right? So we're living already in a socialist world because we have a central banking with unlimited power to kind of create our money. You understand that's a replacement for actual value. You realize that, right?
Sure.
That's why the world. That's why the world is so unique.
You said Elon, you said I took your dreams.
I mean, you paid them. You have to. Wait. I still spoke about you. I speak. When you create a system that limits people to create their investments in life in order to harvest them, you tell no, you're not allowed to harvest anything because I'm going to redistribute it however I like. Then you have to supplicate them with some, I don't know, alternative,
slow down.
artificial
am I forced to compel someone to
motivation story in order to work and to do something? Why would I want to do anything for society? I ask you a question. Why would I want to give anything for you or for society? Why would I believe in you? I don't care about you.
Because if you don't pay up, all of the people around you will feel empowered in feeding you.
Yeah, that's okay. So now you say because I'm okay, fear.
Which is the same reason you pay taxes.
Yeah, that's one-on-one communism. Okay, so basically say, oh, we will just motivate them by fear.
No, I'm not saying that. You asked me.
Okay, so I can go out and look at history and see every tyrannical system that tried. Every tyrannical system that ever tried to motivate people and against their natural.
Every single cooperative system looks tyrannical to an outsider.
Again, every kind of tyrannical system that tried to motivate people with fear against their natural instincts have failed. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, you're just trying to mouth off against socialism without much reason.
No, again, socialism is a great euphemism, right? Because like you call it socialism. Yeah, well, actually, a lot of ideas and beliefs are hiding behind this, right? A lot of, I would call it quasi-religious pseudo metaphysics are hiding behind this stupid word.
Mexad, I'm a little bit confused here. Are you defending socialism?
He's trying to still manage.
Yeah, he tried to defend socialism. Yeah.
Okay, but he's still manning you because I don't think that he believes in anything that he's saying.
No, that's not true. I endorse the arguments I'm presenting. I'm not sure that they really conclude that socialism is the solution, but I do think that, I appreciate ideas and arguments, even arguments for an ultimately wrong conclusion. Right, so
do you want to hear Mao's argument against it? Do you want to hear Mao's argument against it?
Educate party members so that they understand.
Hold up, Isa, 1 second. Let me play Mao's argument and see what he thinks about it.
Is to educate party members so that they understand the importance of party organization and make their criticisms of party committees or comrades at party meetings.
Fucking trolled you.
Section 4. on absolute equalitarianism. Absolute equalitarianism became quite serious in the Red Army at one time. Here are some examples. On the matter of allowances to wounded soldiers, there were objections to differentiating between light and serious cases, and the demand was raised for equal allowances for all. When officers rode on horseback, it was regarded not as something necessary for performing their duties, but as a sign of inequality. Absolutely equal distribution of supplies was demanded, and there was objection to somewhat larger allotments in special cases. In the hauling of rice, the demand was made that all should carry the same load on their backs, irrespective of age or physical condition. Equality was demanded in the allotment of billets, and the headquarters would be abused for occupying larger rooms. Equality was demanded in the assignment of fatigue duties, and there was unwillingness to do a little more than the next person. It even went so far that when there were 2 wounded men but only 1 stretcher, neither could be carried away because each refused to yield priority to the other. Absolute equalitarianism, as shown in these examples, is still very serious among officers and soldiers of the Red Army. Absolute equalitarianism, like ultra-democracy in political matters, is the product of a handicraft and small peasant economy, the only difference being that the one manifests itself in material affairs, while the other manifests itself in political affairs. The method of correction: we should point out that before the abolition of capitalism, absolute equalitarianism is a mere illusion of peasants and small proprietors, and that even under socialism there can be no absolute equality, where material things will then be distributed on the principle of from each according to their ability to each according to their work, as well as on that of meeting the needs of the work. The distribution of material things in the Red Army must be more or less equal, as in the case of equal pay for officers and men, because this is required by the present circumstances of the struggle. But absolute equalitarianism beyond reason must be opposed, because it is not required by the struggle. On the contrary, it hinders the struggle.
And everything else it touches. Look, even you should check out Michael Hudson. He's the most well-known Marxist economist, but he's pretty solid. He's not like one of these faggots. He's actually really good at it. And he wrote a few books regarding currency in the Bronze Ages. And he pointed out that back then, one of the things that happened was that every 50 years, the king would redistribute the land equally, and then let the rise happen over the next 50 years, where the best families and the best workers got all their thing, and then every 50 years he would redistribute the land again equally. Now, maybe that was possible back then, but how do we reimagine this in the modern age, where at least with the land that you're given, you have skin in the game, where it's the world we're living in is becoming more digital, more cosmopolitan, where the elites of our countries can be global capitalists and have no loyalty to the country, where nobody in our own countries have any interest in the future of this country. I don't know. I don't know if socialism... I mean, at this point, this is a problem, right? Liberalism, to me, creates the conditions that actually beg and cry for socialism. Because what happens is you're giving freedom to everybody who deserves it and doesn't. And the people who are capable, who have good families, who have natural abilities, high IQ, discipline, all these things that make you able to be successful in this society. There's only a certain amount of people who are naturally that gifted or come from good families. So basically, you're saying that an 80 IQ person should compete with a 150 IQ person who's coming from an aristocratic family with all the stuffings, right? So I think that if you have pure liberalism, you're gonna get to a situation where you need socialism, because even in liberalism, you make the people more dependent on the government with every social program over time. And what you're doing is, by having this for multiple generations without a break, you're creating generations of people who become dependent on the state as a father. Okay? How do you undo this in an American society? How do you recreate a lower class that is more dependent, more communal, more family orientated? It's poverty. I'm sorry, there's nothing else. So do we give up independence, community, family for welfare? Check out Charles Murray's book, Coming Apart. He describes what happened when welfare entered Thailand, and he was able to see, because he used to be a Peace Corps or Peace Corpsman in saw what happened to a village before and right after welfare was instituted in Thailand, and it said before the welfare, there was a vibrant community. Everybody helped each other. Everybody partied together. Everybody shared in their happiness and sadness together. There was a real community. People depended on each other. They were happy to do things for each other. And then he said, and this was a pretty poor village. And he said once that welfare was instituted, everybody started to go into their own hobbies, watching TV, going on the internet, stop interacting with each other. When he came back a year later, so within like a year or two, he didn't recognize the village anymore. People were rarely outside. There weren't community functions. And he realized this is what we've done in America since the 1930s, essentially. So from my perspective, these liberal, let's say, welfare programs, these services, it creates a group of people who have no longer have a choice but to need socialism at that point.
Okay, I have two pushbacks against what you're trying to do here. So the first pushback would be, okay, but I'm trying to be rational, reason about it. Okay, so the first thing.
First, on the Mao thing, do you have anything to say about the Mao thing?
Yeah, I want to. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to go to the first one. Okay, so the Mao thing. Basically, I have a feeling of a deception here because what he describes is not socialism. He tries to describe utilitarianism, which is probably being used in every kind of system. Now, my problem with it is it's deceptive because the premise of socialism is that everyone will be equal. Like this is the slogan that you create. This is the representative. Like, this is what you want the public to think about.
Equality, fraternity, and liberty. The maximization of all three of those.
And I think that
yeah. So you go to the masses. You go to the masses and tell them all animals are equal, right? You tell them, everyone is equal. But after a while, where everyone is already bought to this idea, then you say, but some animals are equal more. That's my problem. It's very deceptive.
Yeah, but
that in itself is a peasant idea that everyone should be equal in as much things as possible.
Wait. So why going with socialism in the first place?
But that's
like,
very.
Let's go with utilitarianism from the beginning. There is no justice about it. It's just utilitarianism. It's not justice, but utilitarianism.
You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You just blather on.
Just a second. My second pushback is, man, you're just getting into the lines to make MCZ. I cannot speak in the room without you trying to interfere with what I'm trying to say.
Standing essential. Saving humanity.
But he was talking about hyper, absolute equalitarianism, and then the other parts of the essay he talks about.
That one's easy.
Yeah, and then hyper democracy, he has problems with that too, and then also subjectivism, where everybody subjectifies everything to their own lens.
What about the theory of universalism?
So all three of these three things together, to me, he's criticizing not only socialism at its core, but democracy at its core, liberalism at its core, all simultaneously, which nobody.
The problem is, like you're suggesting, they presumed that there was an unbiased true language, and that it was math, and they borrowed one of their phrases and applied it to humans, and realized that there was a flaw in their false god. There is no equality.
Yeah.
People aren't equal.
Correct. And this is actually the conclusion Adams came to in the 1790s after he saw a lot of the constitutions go into action, the state ones, and he realized and all these crazy ideas were implemented. Like Pennsylvania had a system of a unicameral legislature with a 7-member executive, and Adams saw that and was like, within a year, the people of Pennsylvania will be begging for the British to come back. And he wasn't far off because they revised their constitution within a year.
How much of this do you attribute to your man Jefferson?
All the liberals to me, all the liberals, Thomas Paine, John Locke, all the intellectuals, going back to Martin Luther, all contributed to it. Even Plato to some extent, even though he warned against it, he created a lot of the the republic back then was liberal, as it was a liberal reaction against the Kingdom of Rome, right? The five, what is it? The five.
Gio, can I interrupt you?
Right. So, yes.
Okay, so in terms of the liberal, like to me, that's the mystic of any religious organization, whether it's Sufi.
You're not wrong here. We'll get there. Wait, I don't want to get there next. This is a great point, and I want to expand largely on that because this is what me and Anoop have been talking about for the last 6 months, and I think Mixed will love this discussion. Table that for just a second. Let me play you a clip of Jefferson and Adams debating equality back then. And when I read this, I just stood in shock for like 5 minutes because they were literally having the same debate that liberals and conservatives have been having in America for like the last, forever. But I thought, no, it couldn't have been this. No. They've been arguing this for centuries, essentially. Give me 1 second. Jefferson and Adams on equality. Here you go.
In that island. Adams thought that the French Revolution was breeding false notions of equality, and that these were being picked up by the Democrats of this day and undermining the stability of American society. These developments inspired Adams to write a series of letters to his son Charles on just what the modern doctrine of equality really meant. Declarations of equality in the state constitutions and the Declaration of Independence meant not a physical, but a moral equality. Of course, common sense, said Adams, told us that we were not equal in fact, not all equally tall, strong, wise, handsome, active, but we were equal in the sight of God, equal in rights and obligations, nothing more. But this emphasis on moral equality in so many documents should not blind us to the actual inequalities among individuals, inequalities that were present from birth. These physical inequalities among men in a state of nature were infinite. They were so obvious, so determinate, and so unalterable that no man is absurd enough to deny them. They lay the foundation for inequalities of wealth, power, influence, and importance throughout human life. Laws and government have neither the power nor the right to change them. Even the simplest democracy would have inequalities. A few will start forth more eloquent, more wise, and more brave than the rest, and acquire a superior influence, reputation, and power. Inequality was inevitable in any developed society. Once the arts and sciences, manufactures, and commerce were admitted into the society, inequalities of property would naturally arise and were impossible to eradicate. Plato had tried to equalize property in his Commonwealth and failed. Why were Jefferson's followers so eager to deny the reality of inequality? If they were so anxious lest aristocracy should take root, Adams suggested to his son, why didn't they eradicate all the seeds of it, including the use of titles? He had been burned so badly over his preoccupation with titles in 1789 that he couldn't pass up an opportunity to mock his opponent's desire to do away with them. If the Republicans hated titles so much, why not address the Speaker of the House as Frederick Muhlenberg? Why not call the Republican congressman from Virginia, Billy Giles, William Branch Giles? Insurgents, said Adams, always sought to simplify society and level people. During Shays' Rebellion in 1786 and the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794, for example, Gaffer and Gammer, Mr. and Mrs. were laid aside. Once the insurgents have destroyed everything, we may hope that we shall be out of danger in titles and aristocracy. He told his son that this must be quite a secret between you and me, but I will laugh a little with my children at least at the follies of the times. To the end of his life, Adams always felt a deep need to emphasize the natural inequality of people. Somehow or other it became an explanation and a vindication of his own extraordinary rise from mediocrity. Jefferson, of course, never felt such a need.
Adams disagreed with the rest of the founding fathers, both the Jeffersonians, the aristocratic Republicans, and the Democratic Republicans. He wanted a monarchic republic like England, actually, because he saw what happened with the state constitutions. A lot of people don't know this. Except Virginia called upon a dictator twice, Patrick Henry, to fix their economy after ruining it with a more liberal constitution, where the governor had no power, so that the Senate destroyed the economy within 1 year, because the executive did not have a power to veto. Massachusetts, on the other hand, were the last state to make a constitution, and they were able to see all the mistakes of the other colonies. And they came to the conclusion that they should have an executive with a power to veto and to appoint the members of a militia and to call upon a militia when necessary to put down rebellion. And that became the framework of the federal constitution, not any of the other more liberal constitutions.
Well, look at Mormonism and what Joseph Smith did in Southern Illinois and how they had to, flee to Salt Lake because the governor realized that he gave them too much power in their court systems. They had their own jurisdictions. It was basically a for us, by us cult, or the cult of same old shit, where they technically separated and through legal mechanisms and through media and basically terrorism to essentially root out any type of non-Mormon dissident, and this is essentially a cult. And and if you look at the story of Joseph Smith and all this stuff, you'll see that it is essentially a breakaway society. It is anti-government in its founding, and a separatist movement. So I was, before you played that clip, I live in Jefferson Park, Chicago, where we have a bronze statue of Jefferson, and he's signing the Declaration, and he's facing west, and he's holding a feathered, pen, but that statue regularly gets desecrated. But obviously, there's so much. The things about the founders are, it's, when you look at it, it's like, they're like divine. I mean, they lived. Have you ever seen Jefferson's mansion, whatever it's called? It's got a special name.
Monticello? No,
Monticello, yeah.
Republican. Yo, give niggas the history on Mormons and shit. Like, you said they was anti-government in their birth.
Oh yeah, go research the story.
They're trying to be a Christian state, which honestly, even Connecticut was. Connecticut was a theonomic state, which meant that they used the Bible as a setting for their laws. So what they did was, Roger Sherman he thought differently than most of the people in the founding fathers like Jefferson and Madison. He thought that every state should regulate morality, and that was one of the primary purposes of government, to create law and morality, to create stability and a social norm. And that this was to stave off degeneracy and normalizing bad behavior. For instance, he made everybody go to the church on Sundays and bought a book for every single person in the state. There were some Jews who lived there, so he's like, as long as you just, don't push against any of our ideas, you guys are free to live here. And I don't know, like, if Christians had done this from the beginning and half the states were like Christian, where you could live like Christians and have Christian laws, and the other 6 were degenerate, liberal, gay states, I think it would have been a better thing. And the Mormons would have been justified to make their own state in the West somewhere, right? And I don't know, like, if there was a Lutheran state, a Baptist state, whatever, like future denominations, or maybe Calvinist and Lutheran states or something, I think that could have allowed the religious people to live near, right, in the same country as non-religious people. Because then you have states, let's say, where 90% of the people are blue or red or religious or non-religious. And you get to live your own lifestyle here, and I get to live my own lifestyle there. But the problem is, what happens when your degenerate state has refugees who want to come to our state? That becomes a problem, and vice versa. What if we're the failure? And then all of us bum rush the liberal states and we become refugees. And the freedom of movement is really dangerous to me. It allows people to create bad states and then flee. So, I don't know. The American project is a little schizo to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but listen, look up Commodore Barry, Thaddeus Kaczynski. You'll realize that the American experiment, it's a Polish experiment. It's a French experiment. It's an English.
No, it's older. No, it's just a rich versus a poor. You got rid of the king, literally, right? The referee. You got rid of him, right? You got rid of God, and all you have left in your society are the rich and the poor.
Well, that's fine.
Every time you have a democracy, you always get a plutocracy, oligarchy, or democracy.
I know that's fine.
People are incapable of organizing. It's always the best in society that do.
Well, my point is, what's wrong with a semi-secured rich and poor society? I mean, what is wrong with that?
Okay, so for me, one of the problems is
Probably
that if you're going to have a liberal
stemma
society,
in your security provision.
well, there's a lot of things, right? So when you have the rich versus the poor, the rich always win. Okay, they just keep winning, and there's no way to even that out. If you look at Pak Chung-hee. He's a Korean dictator in the 80s who was responsible for the miracle on the Han River. And not just him, the previous dictators as well for different reasons. But
You
he
say
did the
miracle?
majority of the over. Yeah, miracle on the Han River. It's
What's that referencing? I don't know that again.
it's an economic industrialization of Korea and the mass industrial of Korea into like a second world country within like 20, 30 years, basically.
That
So
is
we went
fast.
from we went from one of the poorest countries in the world in 1950. McZ, when I'm saying poor, we were poorer than African countries. We were the poorest country in the world at that time because we had been a poor agricultural society hit by lots of famines throughout our history, and we barely got by. Okay.
Okay, so
Sometimes
how
we
did
had
you
too
do
much-
miracle 20
It
years?
was a population. Okay, so what happened was, our first dictator decided that he was going to take the money that the U.S. gave us for the military and spend a lot of it into education. So he spent 20% of the Korean GDP into education and took a gamble. And if you hear stories
Not really.
about
Such a gamble.
education
Like,
from
I
our
agree with you. People don't usually
no,
do that.
because not every if you give the same resources to every country, not every country is able to do this. But what they did was part of it was we're communitarian, so it's easier to convince us, and enough of us are going to just fall in line.
Right.
The kids who were the people who were these were farmers who did manual work. They were not used to sitting in one place for 8 hours a day. So they would they would act out and stuff, and they would beat them. Literally, either do physical punishment, being in the push-up position for an hour
They were
or
goal
3 or
oriented.
5.
The goal was
Yes,
get
yes,
intelligent
correct.
men.
Correct. As much as possible,
Right.
as fast as possible. And the literacy rate jumped from 3% to 80% to 90% by the 80s and 90s. So it was a huge success. He also brought a lot of economic industries into
I mean,
Korea.
that's a great example of socialism and capitalism working together.
Working together, correct. And there's a better example of this. So the way one of the three dictators designed the system was that they would take advantage of the biggest, best corporations in their country, give them special privileges, just like China does, but then allow them to also, they would have to give back to the country. And the way that Park Chung-hee did it in the 80s was that he said, for every project I give you guys a government contract, you're going to build something else, even at a loss, no matter what it takes.
Oh,
And if you
interesting.
do that, 1 for 1, you make money on this project, you even out on the other project.
I hear
Okay.
that. It's like
So-
a more just gift from the king. The gift comes with a responsibility. That's actually similar
Correct.
to how they did it.
That's like the nobles. It's the nobles.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
if you
feudalism.
read about feudalism, the feudal
He's-
lords
he's
would pay
pointing
for
along.
every wedding, if they would pay for every funeral, they would
Right.
pay for every feast. 90 holidays in England, they would pay for every one of those feasts. They would pay for the armor and the swords of all the peasants that went to war. They were responsible for a lot of things, actually. Even taking care of the...
Right, see, that's the weird thing about America. America is founded from the
lack of an aristocracy, though. Correct.
peasant.
Gio, are you sure? You know what you're describing, Gio, is Benjamin Netanyahu in a nutshell.
So exactly, but so I think that it depends on your country too. Like Lee Kuan Yew is a good example of this as well. Bukele, I think, is pretty good so far, but I have to see his economic policy so far and into the future and what his goals are. But I think if you have someone who has a goal and has a mission, like Park Chung-hee, for example, had a fascination with boats. He loved boats, and he realized that there weren't that many countries in the world that were building boats at a time where he realized that globalization was going to be the new thing. So he literally created the shipbuilding industry in Korea, and from then until now, we were the #1 shipbuilders in the world. We had the most experience, not the most, but we had 30 years, 40 years of experience. And until recently, I think China tried to take over, but still we are. Yeah, that was a huge industry for us. Brought in so much money for us, and that was because he was like, you know what, I can see the future, and this is what we need. And there aren't enough.
Well,
shipbuilders.
he's
We can
committing
build
to
it.
trade in a fundamental way.
Correct. But
Right?
he was
Economy is
also,
something about shipbuilding.
and then another thing he did was he saw the modernization of rural areas in the West, and he was so jealous. And he's like, we cannot be a society where the rural area doesn't even have electricity. So what he did was he sent a certain amount of materials to every village in the country. Some villages were corrupted mayors and officials who were selfish, and what they would do was use the materials to build a driveway and a road in front of their homes, right? And then put the electricity into their homes, and put the one phone that they were given in their homes. And he would not send them a material until they got rid of those people. But to the other people who had good, smart leaders who used it at the main street, put the phone at the main street, and use speaker systems to say, hey, Mr. Kim, you have a phone call, come to the main street. He gave them more goods, and were able to create more roads, right? So this was one of the cool things that he did, was smart, because now he's weeding out the bad people with
Right.
the first
What he
administration.
did that the communists don't usually do is
Yes.
the communists usually get together and think
It's
about
exhausting for
They
Gio.
think that that's what you do.
It's like so happy.
They're like, oh, what would our communist prophet tell us to do in the name of equality, order, and justice? And then they're usually just like revealing their own biases, whoever happens to be in that room. What he did was he acted like a judge. He was like, here's a goal. Our society is bad and stupid. Here's what a good, healthy society looks like. We needed to get to there. What
Wait,
does that?
Mixed, I gotta interrupt you and just say to Gio,
Everything that gets closer to that and punishes everything that gets further away from that.
Gio, your government now and Samsung. I just bought a Samsung washing machine, and guess where it's made? It ain't made in South Korea, baby. It's made in China.
No. China, Vietnam, yeah, it's true.
So my point is, what's the one for one now happening in South Korea? I bet you your country.
No, there isn't. Hold up. Just real quick, let me get to that. So what happened was, once the authoritarians left, that deal disappeared within the free market system. And now these companies who've been boosted up who had access to things that no other companies had, special privileges, laws that weren't even enforced on them, they have all those benefits still, but none of it giving back to the society. And this is how the liberals in Korea destroyed their own fucking growth. And this is why they're gonna get fucked in the next few decades. Because they didn't understand the system they were taking over. They should have, it's a Lee Kuan Yew system.
Well, every smart capitalist knows if you got the balls to go to North Korea, you can make a fortune.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That college kid who fucking so stupid, dude. Why would you go to?
He's related. He's in a secret society in Virginia. Where do you go? Virginia Tech, right? He's in a secret society fraternity. He's related to some CIA employees. He fucked with the wrong people.
No way. This is.
I'm not making that up. I'm telling you. Think about it. Think about it.
Hold up. What kind of stupid op goes to a?
It's a stupid kid. What do you mean? He's a stupid kid. He's a stupid kid. He thinks he's a tough guy because his parents are in intelligence, and he thinks he's a tough guy.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, that part I could understand. I thought you were saying that he was sent in as an operative.
No, of course not. Poor kid. Herzog was his name, right?
Yeah, I misunderstood. Herzog, yeah.
Yeah, poor kid unfortunately fucked with the wrong people.
No, okay, so let's go back to your point that you made earlier about liberals being, the higher members of society early. Go. I love that point.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, you. Remember you were going to...
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, the term liberal or liberals has, it's multifaceted, it has different meanings, but my point is within the world's major religions, which technically embody the world's political divisions, within the world's religions, the liberals are always the yin to the yang or the white to the black. They are, the pudding in the sauce. So they're the controversial... Yeah, they're the controversial trolls in many ways who are anti-authoritarian and they are anti-state, anti-government in many ways because
the Pablo Picasso.
they believe in in terms of liberal, like they believe in liberation theology, essentially liberating yourself from government supervision, government control, government business, everything. They believe in real freedom, which is, in my opinion, what America is really founded on, which is Enlightenment ideals, which is technically iconography or esoteric studies into the bizarre and obscene or stupid. So, like, if we were to make Migzed our priest in Jerusalem or here in America, or we were to LARP it up and do Comic-Con in the real world and not just do it in the fantasy worlds of a convention hall, if we were to really go and become a Christian state and kind of reenact what the Mormons did and go anti-government psychotic and become polygamist psychopaths, my point is that is technically the liberalism in every single political or religious organization. And it is dangerous and it is psychotic and it is bizarre and it does have dire consequences.
All right, so this is my response to that. So traditionally, I hear you that these kinds of innovative personalities are something that we need to reinvigorate the upper echelons of the priesthood, right? The aristocracy, things like that. But the problem is that you can't have half your society be those people. Remember in the Old Testament when the prophets would come and lament the king and say, "Look, you're going too far for this reason, and you need to repent to God and stop doing what you're doing and reverse your course. If you don't, you're gonna have a downfall befall you." These people came from the wilderness, meaning they came away from the center of the state where they could be influenced, right? But the problem in our country, in a legalistic, bureaucratic, academic, Max Weber wrote an essay, Science as a Vocation, what was the other one? Politics as a Vocation, I think. And he said to beware because this legalistic societies and free societies, liberal societies, make these into full-time jobs, which is not a good thing to do because the older societies used to select people from the nobility who was trained their whole life to be disciplined, ascetic, right? Who were trained in the military arts and in all the other arts, like humanities, everything, right? Everything from ruling to maybe they would go into the priesthood. They would learn the arts. They would preserve it, and then from those groups of people, you would get these revolutionary writers, right? Like Augustine and shit. But the problem is you can't have it that half your retarded society thinks that, A. B, when your society appeals to mediocrity, not excellence, because you're democratic. What I'm trying to say is in a democratic society, you're literally destroying that creativity by not appealing to excellence and appealing to mediocrity. So
Yeah, that's the whole thing with Elon Musk's whole debate with Don Lemon. And then we see Don Lemon come out of the courthouse kissing his 6'4" Adonis husband with the little poodles. I mean, I wanted to puke in my mouth and then swallow my puke and shit out a Don Lemon baby turd. Okay, the problem is communication. We are forced to, on a repetitive basis, watch vulgarity. This is like the mass hypnosis of vulgarity.
Constantly debate everything. Look, no matter what you think, in the feudal ages, nobody was debating abortion for like 365 days a year, or debating if God exists for 365 days a year. We've allowed that. Like, this is what liberal societies do. If you read, in America and Europe, when liberalism was popular, all the middle class would spend all their time in cafes debating politics. And now in 2024, all the middle class are on Clubhouse and Twitter debating politics.
Yo, I had this theory once upon a time that a lot of this shit that we be so hyper obsessed with, that LGBTQ stuff, you know what I'm saying, whether men is men and women is women, I feel like the powers that be, they use that as like low-hanging fruit for, folks who pride themselves on being intellectuals. Like, to someone like a GO or a Republican, this is common sense. But I guess due to the fact that society just got caught in the trend of having this discussion, a high IQ individual like yourself might find yourself involved in one of these conversations when in reality, you're just wasting time type shit. Because
this is why we call it a middle class type of society, liberalism. It's the legalism, it's the merchants, I don't know, it just destroys action.
See, Ish, we are not wasting time because we are technically refining our thoughts, which is really to try to reductionize or reduce everything. So basically, we don't have to have the same conversation. I've heard Gio already talk about the economic transformation of South Korea. It's a fascinating story, but there's many other economic transformation success stories throughout the world. That's one particular example, and there's a dozen of those examples. So, I come here to create product, which is recorded materials, aka videos. You may have heard of live streaming. You know, right now I'm looking at 20 phones and I'm getting blasted with lasers out of the face of each one of these phones as I record my morning podcast, which is a product which in the future may have some value or it may not. It doesn't matter. But to me, being on Clown House is not a waste of time from a creative perspective. But if you go into rooms that aren't recorded and you don't record it yourself, you are literally jerking yourself off and you are contributing to a government surveillance funded app. This is a surveillance capital app at its finest. And Twitter is as well. But this app doesn't even have advertisements. Twitter with Elon Musk, which is a real actual liberty app, which pretty much allows free speech, this app does not. However, but this app, in my opinion, has to be some type of government-funded ongoing effort because Paul and Joe, the two little faggot LGBTQ Adderall sniffers that run this technological innovation, aka government-funded surveillance app, it's a joke, but I'm just trying to point out that, you know, at the end of the day, if you want to create value, you have to record your life. If your life has no value, you're not recording
You're
it.
already doing it for me, Edmund. You know,
No, I'm doing it, but other people aren't doing it. And that's my point is if you want to continue jerking off infinitely and repeat your patterns over and over and over, because we are pattern seeking, pattern creating creatures. This app proves it. From a psychological observational standpoint, Geo just repeated himself. And if you ask anybody who has ever talked to Geo, they would say, yeah, I've heard him repeat himself multiple times. I have repeated myself a gazillion fucking times because I may have more time to come on here and repeat my pattern. But I'm just pointing out the fact that if you want to interrupt your pattern, if you want to modify your pattern, you have to read these things called KOOB, which backwards spells book. Okay, that's the thing that will change your life and give you more perspective and fill up your consciousness and expand your perspective.
100%. I don't disagree.
So this app essentially becomes a political hypnosis social media jerk-off app, which has no real value other than government-funded capital surveillance data gathering.
Yeah, but that's just the lifestyle of most people nowadays anyway. Sorry, go ahead.
That's so good. I was told this by somebody who used to work with Mike Pence. You might even know who I'm referring to, but I'm not going to say her name because I've been trying to get her the name drop for a little while, and she's reluctant to do so. But long story short, this individual told me that there's a scientist that works at some university. I can't remember the name of the university or the scientist, but he basically is doing research, right, on the government's behalf, on the people on this app. And as you said, they don't have advertisements here, right? But yet they're up and running. And she said essentially, like, when you speak into the phone, the stress levels in your voice, for instance, the topics that draw a certain level of emotional engagement out of you, they're monitoring all that shit. Where your eyeballs fall, like in response to someone speaking, they're monitoring all that. And, you know, it was pretty scary for me one day when I came on the app and I seen the AI generated question at the top in like the hallway. Because, you know, it's a very subtle reminder, though it's asking a basic ass question, like, you know, what have you learned from Islam? That's the quote unquote religion I created that's in my bio, right? It just reminds you that we're listening at all times. And, you know, I think back to the interview with Sam Altman and a lot of these different characters that are like popular in this world of AI. And they say literally that we're holding this technology back from society. We feel that, you know, if we unleashed this technology on society, there's no coming back. So, you know, I'm interacting with some primitive form of AI. Just imagine if they unleashed, you know, what they have in the vault or in their arsenal. You know, what kind of questions would the AI then be able to generate? So,
I don't know. I guess one thought leads to the next, but the whole concept of a surveillance state, right? I feel we live as a part of that now more than ever before. Like you're constantly walking around with something surveilling called a phone. And
Look, I was thinking about this on Clubhouse the last few years, with like listening to AI discussions, and I realized that the people who hated religion, the atheists and liberals and humanists and all these people, they're actually creating the technological equivalent of a god, with mass surveillance, right? Constant recording of everything, and they're actually going to create, I don't know, their version of a god, right? Whereas our version, our God forgives, there's redemption. He doesn't always punish us every moment for every bad thing we do. The judgment is at the end. However, if you have a technological godlike system, and it's not even doing anything, right? All it does is record and monitor. And all it does is observe your behavior from you as an infant and records every single one of your mistakes. And let's say they decide to punish you for those mistakes. Or let's say they decide to punish you after a certain number of mistakes. The infinite calculus of that is pretty scary for a group of people or a government to have. And this AI God that they are creating out of rationality, without even unintentionally or intentionally, it doesn't even matter to me. It's creating a new type of God that doesn't forgive, and that's always watching, whether you're naughty or nice. And that's pretty scary, that a human-made God, out of rationality, seems to be way more vicious than the God of other religions. Very interesting. Very interesting.
I guess give me an example of that viciousness, or are you speaking in like theory?
Like social credit score, right? Imagine, like, let's say you have a bad day and you start yelling at people. That's a mark on your record now, right? That's what the social credit score basically is, right? They're using AI, cameras, mass surveillance. If you go to London, everything you do is being recorded. They have really good cameras already set up in London due to a lot of crime and the lack of ability to enforce every road. So they have security cameras on every road, basically. And they're able to monitor you by zooming in and all that shit. It's pretty HD cameras. And if you go to, if you commit a crime on the street, they'll even like find you later and catch you. And this happens in Korea and China as well. So the future capability of this in governance is what I'm talking about, right? Where the government is using that and really picking which things to punish and which things to not punish, because they'll know every single thing bad you did. They'll know every lie you told a friend. They'll know every lie you told your parents or your loved ones. They'll know every time you I don't know, just do bad things, right? Things that they might not want you to do, right? Maybe it's they don't want you to watch certain types of videos. It doesn't matter what it is. But it's going to have to regulate. It's going to have the power, the potential power to regulate. It's going to have the potential power to know every single mistake you made in life. And it kind of destroys the sense of kind of, what would you say, being forgiven, right? And having redemption. I don't know. It might kill redemption. I don't know. We'll see.
You might be right about that.
And it might be nothing. I'm just saying that's a future potential, right? That there is this ability and capability to be able to do that right now. The NSA doesn't, we know that they record everything at this point from our phones. So.
Yeah, I'm intimidated by this new reality, but I'm also excited. I want to see how we can leverage the technology to, convenience ourselves, but the convenience is definitely going to come at a price. And
yes.
I think that, the more and more we learn to depend on technology, it's the same shit you'll be saying with like liberalism and, becoming a government dependent. I feel like we will forget. I just think we're going to harm ourselves in certain ways as a species. If you don't use it, you lose it. That's a law of nature. And, humans talk about not remembering phone numbers as well, and not being able to navigate streets as well. This was a muscle that our ancestors constantly had to flex, and they had a normal very different from our own. So certain things were just not unreasonable to them. Like going to the library, for instance, right now is something that I could do. But just as a byproduct of being born into this generation, something about that idea feels ridiculous when I have a smartphone that I could type my thoughts into. So it just becomes a situation where I feel like the more and more we advance, right, the more and more we sacrifice control to the system, and we don't even realize like the level of detriment.
Independence, right? Like having, different skills, a plethora of skills, right? All these things, the family, community, everything. We sacrifice that at the altar of individuality, the altar of free choices, the altar of irresponsibility.
What you think about Elon Musk and this Neuralink chip?
I'm not a fan. I don't know. It's kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie. I hope it fails. I hope it's just impossible. That's what I hope. But if you click at the image at the top, right? This is like the liberal utopia, I guess, right? The future, the Star Trek future that they dream about. And then like the liberals don't have really an argument against this. And I don't know. Is the point of life to have all your pleasure centers constantly turned on by things? I don't know. It seems most societies put aesthetics and discipline, right? Good rituals, good action, good thoughts,
See, and that shit is making me think about leaving certain habits alone. For instance, I smoke weed, right? And just that act of smoking itself, right? You're not really accomplishing nothing in that moment, but you are being rewarded, right? So it becomes a situation where you get used to experiencing life in this artificial way, and once that becomes normal for you, right, then I guess it could like deny you, your self-sufficiency. I mean, you can't function independently, at least not as smoothly as you used to without the narcotic. And I don't know, I guess I just expanded that view to technology and all of these different things. I see all of them as narcotics. All of these things are providing you with hit, rush of dopamine with no fucking actual like sacrifice in the process.
Or sacrifice, or accomplishment, or goal, or meaning, or
Right.
Yeah.
So it becomes this situation where like I'm a heavy reader. Like I read a lot. I tend to listen to, but I do talk my shit. In any case though, like I'll read a book these days, and I think because I just have an appetite for knowledge, I could kind of discipline my way through a chapter or a passage or whatever the case may be, because I'm actually stimulated. But
like this, bro. I remember one summer I went to the library, and we didn't have much money, so my parents could buy me the Harry Potter series, and everybody in school were talking about it, and I was so fucking jealous. I was like, fear of missing out, FOMO, right? I'm like, I never get to talk about anything because my parents wouldn't let me listen to pop music. My dad got mad. I was listening to Hotel California and Bandit from the house, and then I just put on my headphones and listened to it. But wait, what was I saying? I was fear of missing out. So then I borrowed the books from the library one summer and read all 3 of the books in 3.5 days. I read for like literally 16 hours a day.
Nah, that's what's up. That's what's up. See, I can only do that lock the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You
No, but my mom made it a habit by paying me to do that. So when I came here when I was 5 after being raised by my grandparents. My parents had come here as soon as like about 8 months after they had me, and then we're trying to save up money so that they could afford things and have me come. But then they had my sister after 2 years, a year and a half later. So then I had to wait another 3 years to come, basically, right, for them to be set and stable. But my mom was like, all right, since you don't know any English, I need to basically, you know, teach you more than all these other kids. So she used to literally bribe me a quarter or 50 cents for reading every one of those thin Berenstain Bears, Clifford the Big Red Dog. She literally bribed me into reading my first, like, probably 100 books or like 50 books. And then after that, I didn't even need to be paid anymore, right? So she developed that habit in me. She made me read Russian literature. She made me read English classics and Scottish classics. Sir Walter Scott, Ivanhoe, what's her name? Shelley, Frankenstein. She made me read all these things from different countries. She made me read like Dostoevsky at 13. I failed miserably. I was like, no, I can't read this. This is too dense. But I read Lord of the Rings in 5th grade and these things, and she was really instrumental in that. That's why I'm so big on like culture and like spreading good ideas like this. And maybe some women in the community need someone like my mom to fashion themselves after, or to awaken their faith in decision making and choice making, right? And to see that, wow, these like small things can make a difference even if I'm not rich, right? And we weren't rich. Yeah.
In contrast, right? My mother couldn't read. She probably still can't read today, not fluently at least. She comes from, a collapsed state where, it's pretty common for folks not to be able to read. So, I guess certain history that predated both me and her just shaded us for certain outcomes. Or just made it very likely that certain fundamentals, right, would
because
be missing.
I read some stories throughout history, man. Like Alexander Hamilton, he was living on a small island in the Caribbean, right? His mom and dad died within a year of each other. His mom is a prostitute, so he's a bastard. And so all he's left with is like a small cottage and like a shitload of books from his dad's estate. And so he goes through all these great books that he goes through, and he just reads all of them. And he becomes so smart, and he is smart just from his, probably natural, he has a natural intelligence. And he reads all these really thick books on finance and economics. And he becomes so smart that he puts these ideas into action at the market and gives so much good advice that he becomes essentially the guild leader of this market. And he's the one that everybody goes to for advice at the age of 30. And pretty soon, the people over there see such talent and promise and potential in him that they fund him to go to the College of New York in America. And then he becomes one of our founding fathers. Bro, like, no one could have, like, that's a Hollywood story, dude, right? Like, my grandfather is the same way. He was the poorest of 12 children in 1930s when we were so fucking poor under Japanese colonialism. And my grandfather wanted to go to school to get educated. And his father was like, no, you're not getting educated by these Japs because they're brainwashing you, making you change your name to Japanese names, teaching you Japanese instead of Korean, not teaching you Korean history. I don't want that. And my grandfather was like, yeah, but I need to be educated, because he got influenced by the Protestant ministers on his island off the coast of Korea. And he wanted to be educated because he saw something in them that he liked, that they were educated, they understood things, right? He didn't want to be a farmer. So he said, I want to be a pastor. That became his goal. So in order for him to go to school before his dad, so that his dad couldn't stop him in the morning, because he wakes up early at like 5, he would wake up at 4:30 in the dark. His mom would make him a rice ball because they were poor, and that would be his entire meal for the day. And then he would walk with like a thin straw moccasin many kilometers to go to school at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. Right? He did this risking getting beat by his dad when he get back home, depending on his mood. And he took every fucking beating, right? Like, that's great. Like, not everybody will do that in the world, right? Some people, there are definitely people who are will do that. I'm not saying that there's nobody, but I'm saying that that's a very rare type of person. And he eventually ran away to the mainland because his mom wrote to his aunt and asked her to take him, but she had 4 kids of her own. So she took care of him for like 3 months and then couldn't take care of him. So he became homeless on the mainland. And he basically was able to scrape up little changes he found on the street and started selling stationery goods. Remember those kids you used to see, like the casino girls, where you have the little thing and then they have everything on there? That's what he used to do on the street. He used to sell stationery goods, and he used to go door to door, get bitten by dogs. He got bitten by about 12 dogs, right? Something like that, 10, 12 dogs, I forget the exact amount. He had like 12 bites on his body, yeah. Getting chased out of homes and shit. And then because he was homeless, he would sleep on rich people's porches or middle class people's porches by sneaking in. And he graduated from theology school, the seminary, became a pastor, and then went to the slums and became a pastor of a small church. And the only place they could provide for him to live was a mud hut on the property of the church, right? That was made out of mud and straw. And that was the first place him and his wife basically lived in, right? So this guy could have just been a farmer, but he defied all the odds and went through all that, went through all the beatings, the hatred from his dad, right? His siblings saying, "Why are you causing trouble?" You know? That's a rare person out of his 12 siblings. Actually, there was another older sibling who was also like that, actually. But that's still a rare person, so I don't know, man. It's to me, some people have it and some people don't. It seems like.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. You know, not everybody born with a certain quality of character, and you know, certain environments got a way of building character. So, his circumstances that he was born into might have slipped in a blessing in disguise. You know what I mean? Just in terms of the way he handled it. What you call it? I think that poverty, and hearing you say that, right? It has a way of, you know, making people not scared to fail. I think that, like, once you move up the social ladder,
poverty can be a blessing in disguise. That's a fact. A lot of people say that. Actually, there's a philosopher who said the same thing. He said, poor people are born with the ability, with a lot more freedom than the rich, he says, and the ability to go through so many experiences that can actually shape them to be better people, whereas the rich are shielded out of that.
But success is only going to come through intelligence and communication, or communication intelligence, especially if you're independent of government. You have to become a publisher, essentially, to become an independent, you know, financial person.
For me, I'm realizing it's more discipline, value, goal, identity, meaning. Those things actually are the impetus. It's the will. That creates the willpower, right? And without those things, I've seen so many smart kids who don't meet their potential because they're not challenged enough maybe in school. Maybe they're just bored. Maybe they're lazy, right? There was even like a documentary I saw on PBS like 20 years ago where they went through the lives of a lot of kids with a lot of potential, high IQ, skipped like 7 grades and stuff. And they came to the conclusion that most of these people actually failed in life. They just like started living with their parents essentially because they had not learned how to be challenged since their youth. And so a lot of them got used to not being challenged and didn't know how to push. So even there was a study done where some of the most successful people in the world are not always the most intelligent, but there's a common thread where they might not be the top intelligent people, but if they're near the higher intelligence, but they were impoverished and they had duties and a lot of obligations and had to juggle a job and babysitting their 2 younger siblings and taking care of their drunk mother while going to school, and they successfully made it through, those people were generally the most successful people.
what you call it? I think Robert Greene, he got an example where he speak to that. He tend to mention Charles Darwin and Francis Galton. Apparently, the Galton dude, he had like a really high IQ. You know, there was super high expectations of Galton, and he did go on to create, I guess, a bit of a storm within the scientific world, but he never really like invented a new way of looking at things. He was responsible for associating with shit like eugenics and fucking a lot of racialized fucking non-scientific ways of thinking. Darwin, on the other hand, though, this dude like failed in school. His father was like very concerned about him, and at some point, his father like put him in a church. Like, all right, you know, I think you're not gonna grow up to do much in life. This seems like a safe predicament for you. Just get through this, and you'll be fine. You know, we'll set you up. He gets offered this fucking trip on a boat called the HMS Beagle. And the dude gets on the boat and like travels all throughout South America. Remember, he's like this, you know, low achieving individual. Long story short, he go out there, observe, and I guess the blessing of not, you know, having confidence at times, it's just the humility to sit back and actually, you know, see reality for what it is. You know, not allow your perception of your intelligence to hinder you from actually just seeing things for what they are. And I think Darwin, he just had the humility to approach things with a fresh set of eyes. And, you know, thanks to that cracker, we got the theory of evolution and shit. I think that
Look, Galton wasn't no lightweight either, though. So just saying, he might have been a eugenicist, but he wasn't no intellectual lightweight either. There's a lot of ideas that we attribute to him, and some things were rediscoveries and things. I get that, but there are a lot of things and concepts that we use. The regression toward the mean is something from Galton. So yeah, he's not no lightweight, bro. But I get your point. But he wasn't. Yeah, I guess you're saying he wasn't as influential as Darwin, which is true.
yeah, he definitely wasn't, despite his talent.
He wasn't like innovative in the sense that Darwin was. I get you.
You know, one thing with the stories that you guys have been telling, it seems like at least the conclusion that I get from them is that you don't really need the you know, people think you need a lot of resources just to be successful, but if anything, it's more like Gio was saying, it's more like your determination, your drive, your character, your willingness to deal with adversity, and your ability to navigate through it, right? That's more important. I think that's the most important things, because if you've got that, then really no matter what circumstance you're in, you're going to you know, pursue these things of value. I always say that one of the most important things you can do for a kid is making sure that you instill the value of education in them, because I think once you do that, what that means is that no matter where they're at, no matter what kind of circumstance they find themselves in, that they're always going to pursue, you know, educational means. And it's one of those things where it's like, look, if you really want it, if you really truly want it, you can get it. Sure, it might take a lot of work. You might be, you know, born into a circumstance where it's harder to do it, but it's like, look, if you truly want it, it actually is possible. And it's like, that's the most optimistic thing about it. You know, it's not all doom and gloom where it's like you're born in certain circumstances and you're just doomed to them. It's like, no, that's not the case. Not at all.
I think so, though. I think that there is some level of character we can build into people through religious and cultural norms and things like that. But I think that, I don't know. I think that not everybody is put for excellence, right? They're missing something. And my problem with, like, you know me, MGK, right? We've talked forever on this app. And, you know, I used to be a liberal, a libertarian conservative, right? But I'm coming to the conclusion that that's just as idealistic as liberals. Like, we're just a different type of liberals. We're not saying that everyone can pull up themselves up by the bootstrap. But without a strong foundation of a culture or religion and commonality, that becomes impossible in a deracinated, individualistic society, which to me seems more Nietzschean than anything. Basically, if you're 120, if you're either 120 IQ white Protestant or a Germano white Protestant, right, or you can mimic that, then you're going to be successful in this country, essentially, right? And to me, it's like America's become a country of merchants, and I'm seeing problems where, I'm going to mute you because there's a lot of background noise, bro. But I don't think everyone can make it because it's the freest society in the world. We have more access to resources, information, the library, internet than ever in human history. I don't see people taking advantage of it even at the middle class level. Never mind the lower class level, right? There's so much ways to take advantage of the world around us, and I just don't see people doing it out of their own free will. It's as if they're waiting for someone to do it for them.
Yeah, I actually agree with that completely, right? Not everyone's going to be able to do it, and like you said, it's I think the part that I was speaking at, or at least attempting to, was the fact that that I think, sure, there are people who just won't get it right, but I think there are a lot of people who, like you said, just aren't taking advantage of the resources that they do have, and it's like, sure, they might not think it's much, but it's like, hell, if you've got an iPhone, it's like, that's quite a bit, right? That'll get you pretty damn far. It's like that access to a computer, the internet. It's like, you know, you're unlocking a entirely new world, and it's like you really didn't take any kind of extraordinary action to do this. You just took advantage of the resources that you had before you. And I think if most people did that, it's like they could see a level of success that they currently aren't seeing in their lives just by doing that. Taking advantage of the resources and opportunities that's before them right now.
Let me give you an
agree,
quick
but
example.
hold on, real quick.
What's up, Ish?
I agree, but you know what I'm saying? Like Gio was saying earlier, that culture, that foundation, that should be critical because, you know, an individual like myself, right? I found myself able to lock in at a point in time, like knowing I had less, knowing that I was quote unquote under resourced or whatever the case may be, like that shit didn't really infiltrate my way of thinking. I just kind of stayed focused and, you know, stayed on course. But temptation is a motherfucker. And I think that, you know, without the proper, like, communal reinforcement, you know, checks and balances, folks to help get you back on course if you fall astray a little bit, you know, it could be difficult to sustain that, like, productivity type shit for me, because I just think that kids in general, they never get it right the first time, you know? So when you don't really got, and sometimes it's not even about people being able to bring you back on course. Sometimes you only have one chance to fail because there is no one that's going to bring you back on course, you know? And I just think that without that, like, community backing, right, it's very easy for an individual who's trying to be focused to you know, find themselves investing their time in something other than their contribution to society. Because Gio earlier was saying, like, you know, when he was a kid, his mother incentivized him to read books. She gave him like 50 cents and shit. And gradually but surely, you know, this just became like second nature to him type shit. But I don't know. Was Gio tempted by females in high school? You know, what sort of social temptations did Gio have around him? Gangbanging shouldn't be a temptation for many, right? Not that it was a temptation for me, but just to bring it a little closer to home, you know, if you grow up in an environment where
I think every kid, fuck the environment. I think every kid just wants to be cool. Every kid, don't matter who it is. So that's why all the kids is fiending for the newest stuff, etc. Long story short, though, if you grow up in an environment where, let's say, there's a high crime rate, and that presents a security issue, right? You may want to find yourself belonging to, a collective that's going to make sure that you're well protected. You know what I'm saying? But in the process of you just belonging to that collective, right? We know how shit goes. Like a domino effect of fuckery could take place. You get involved in someone else's scandal, and your main focus in life, which should have been your contributions to society, is essentially taken away from. And you a kid, you're sensitive to everything, so of course these things feel real to you. They feel like they matter. This individual who's talking shit at this present moment in time, and you'll just allow yourself to make decisions in the short term, and this obviously doesn't apply to every individual, but for those who do manage to slip through the cracks, you just allow yourself to get distracted by things that don't reward you in the long term. So I feel like, Geo grandfather, certain people in this world, they truly commendable for just being able to stay focused, despite all of those distractions or potential temptations. But generally speaking, I don't think most individuals, on average, will display that capacity to just be excellent and avoid all of the fuckery.
Good point.
Yeah. Yo, Shiva, you here? Yeah, I probably put y'all to sleep.
No, I agree. Yeah, this is why culture and software is important. But I don't know. In America, it's like trying to get everybody to be like a white Protestant Anglo culture. To some degree, it's helped, in the South. But I don't know. Not everyone can do that to that degree. We have a problem with overspending in America and over reliance on credit cards that put people in really bad situations. And some of these people shouldn't even be allowed to have credit cards. I don't understand why we're letting these people have credit cards with 80 IQ or some shit. It's crazy what we allow. And I don't know. I wish we had some responsible liberalism back instead of just unlimited degeneracy liberalism, like a liberalism of excellence, of high standards, so that Harvard can once again be an institute of excellence instead of appealing to mediocrity. Having higher standards in public school, if you can't fit, you need to go. I'm sorry, but we gave you an opportunity. Holding people accountable, and those who can't, I don't know. I don't know how much we can survive as a free society if we don't even have a standard for excellence or a social norm of being considered to each other in public spaces. If that becomes live and let live, if that becomes everybody has different culture, I mean, that's it. The society shatters, and we're kind of at that point, right? Where if I open a door for a girl, she can either say, "Hey, I can do it on my own and give me attitude," or it can be "Thank you." And I don't know which girl is which, so I'd rather just not open the door sometimes for people, right? It's creating uncertainties, right? If a man is going to get sued for trying to defend someone in public, maybe, and then thousands of men, it happens to 1,000 men, and we see it on the news all the time. Maybe it disincentivizes us to help people in public. want to get hurt because insurance is expensive, right?
Yeah, I was feeling that conversation that y'all was having earlier too when I walked in. Y'all was saying something. It was you, McSad, and I can't remember who else. I think Elon. But y'all was basically saying that like, and I'm gonna think out loud here for a little bit. Feel free to cut me off though. But y'all was basically saying that like, you know, the weak folks in society benefit from the assistance programs, whatever they may be. They benefit, not the pull yourself up by your bootstraps, self-sufficient, excellent individuals. They don't benefit at all. If anything, these programs tend to happen right at their expense.
Tax more at 38%. But let me give you another mind blower to add on to that point, though. All the women for the last 3 generations who voted for more and more welfare programs, they have actually been taxed at 38% to allow poor people who are in bad situations to have children, which resulted in a future where after 3 generations of being taxed at 38%, now they cannot afford to have their own children. Imagine if their tax was at 10%, how much money they could have saved in the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Everybody, right? Who are capable, who are in the middle class, who are contributing. But women have outvoted themselves of having children in the future because they'd rather invest 20, 30% of their taxes into poor people. How crazy is that?
And this is single mothers or?
No, I'm talking about any white women who votes for welfare, essentially. They are paying for any poor mother who gets government assistance of any kind. They're helping those people to have children, and by doing that, they have prevented themselves in the future from having children 3 generations down the line when the economy goes to shit. And now
this is what the data shows.
Correct.
No doubt. Shit,
think about it. Think about all the taxes. You're making
$100,000.
$100,000. Let's say you're making $100,000. You're paying 38% of your income to taxes, right? That's local, state,
Right.
federal, right? And then on top of that, you have sales tax from buying groceries and everything you buy, right? You're essentially paying most of that 38% of your taxes goes to welfare programs, all these things, right? Services, goods. So what that does is that money you could have been saving or investing for, I don't know, in stocks or whatever, or in future funds. You've been giving to the government to redistribute to the poor. So when these women nowadays are saying, oh, I'm too poor to have children, or men can't afford children, it's because both people have been taxed at 38% to help the poor.
So, with that being said, you don't think government assistance programs should exist?
If they do exist, it should be very temporary, and there should be limitations. For the elderly and the poor, in my perfect society, there'd be a mixture of church, local associations, nonprofits, businesses that all work together to try to make the best system in their local areas. That's what I would hope. But that doesn't usually work out unless you have a good mixture of upper class, middle class, and lower class people who are all in one religion, or at least see themselves all as one people, who are all working toward a common goal. But how do you have that in a society of like free movement, where people can just leave? Whereas some of the best people in your city that were all the leaders were actually doing a pretty good job decide, hey, I'm just gonna go, retire. I'm gonna live, and go to Singapore or some shit. Unfortunately, in America, everyone's been able to abandon every area, right? So I don't know how a system can happen. Can like a Buddhist guy be in charge of like a Christian neighborhood? I don't know. Like this mix of all these people are preventing a lot of the things that would be a good, let's say, answer in my opinion, in my utopia. But I don't know. It's just everything that's
So at some point, do you think America should just stop bringing immigrants in?
I don't know, because American working class people are too uppity. They think they're too good for physical labor. In my area, they're paying people to set up event chairs and like things and tables, and they're fucking paying them $35 an hour, and people don't want to do it.
What's this area?
Less. Boston.
$35 fucking dollars an hour
Yeah,
just to set up chairs?
yeah, because they couldn't find people. Nobody wanted to do the job, or
That's
nobody competent, I
ridiculous.
guess. There's another town in my area, and this is across the United States, but there's a town that's literally paying to train people to be carpenters, because there's so few carpenters in their town and their local area, the region, and they can't even get people to sign up for this program for free.
You gotta pay taxes in Boston?
There's a lot of taxes. Yeah, it's high taxes for sure.
No, I'm saying to enter that program, because I feel like that.
No, it was a free program, dude. They were gonna pay for training. They're gonna help.
So my black ass could just leave New York right now and go there.
I don't know if it's still here. This was from about 6 years ago. Just look up free carpenter in Boston. Maybe this was in Medford. This was a different town, I think, or Melrose. It was a different town north of Boston, but I remember they had this program. But there's another program in Boston here. If you're over 25, but this is a program that I link up a lot of the kids in my neighborhood and in the my network. Like I've helped kids in my neighborhood who look promising, who look like hard workers, goal oriented. I told them about this program called Level Up or some shit. Yeah, I forgot. It's been Level Up, I think it's called. And what it does is it teaches you I think it's free. Yeah, it's free. So you can go. There's a certain limit of people who can sign up, but they teach you in hotel management, nursing, what else? What's the IT and something else? I forget the fourth one. But I got my this kid was working at Dunkin' Donuts, right? And I used to go there all the time. It's my local Dunkin' Donuts. I used to get the coffee there. And this guy was a really hard worker. So I told him about the program.
You're lying. You got the Boston cream too every time you went. Don't lie.
Oh, I hate that shit. I hate Dunkin' Donuts. I hate that shit. Because when I was a kid in our middle class neighborhood, every time it was someone's birthday, the mom would be lazy and go get Dunkin' Donuts and Munchkins because it's the cheapest shit. I got so sick of that shit because we would have it like 4 times a fucking month. Like I hated that shit. I hate Dunkin' Donuts. I hate it with a passion. Okay. Unless it's like a really fancy bakery, I don't even eat donuts anymore. That's how much I hate fucking donuts. Okay. But where was I?
You was talking about the program Level Up.
Level up, level up, level up, level up.
So now he's making like $35 an hour after 3 years of graduating from this program. You have to do it for like 2 years, I think. And they pay you get trained for about a year or something, and then they pay for you to get an internship for a year. So you learn on the job training for a year, right? So after going through that, they do pay you a little bit, but it's very little money because it's a government program. So it's like $600 a month they'll pay you for your internship. But if you are able to graduate through this, he's making $35 an hour now doing IT, right? And he's just getting raises every fucking year like crazy. And the first year out, he was making, like at Dunkin' Donuts, he said he was making $10. His first year out, he was making $19 an hour. Within the third year, he was making $24 an hour. And he said that he was able to go on a vacation for the first time with his new IT friends. They went to Europe for like 10 days or some shit, right? He was able to buy a car for his little brother, things like that. So, I don't know. There's opportunities out there, but a lot of these people don't want to take them, And a lot of the kids I sent to the program, they don't even complete it. I'm just like, bro, I've seen you work hard. What the fuck is your problem? And they're just like, oh, I didn't want to go one day. I was just like, wow.
If you have the willpower to go to Dunkin' Donuts and a high volume Dunkin' Donuts and sit there and sweat your ass off doing all the different functions, in that little kitchen thing, it's a fucking grind. It's the worst grind you could ever possibly imagine. It's a lot of work.
You would be Yeah, but then nursing is worse though. Nursing is kind of worse, but at the same time, it's like IT. Come on, dude. Like, dude.
Yeah, I was definitely always a entrepreneur as a kid. What you call it? I had this dude who used to work in Brownsville. I don't know if y'all know about that neighborhood, but it's where Mike Tyson's from, Zab Judah, a couple other notable folks. Long story short, this dude used to sell like clothes and DVDs on the street. He didn't have a storefront. He just had like 2 tables set up, and he would just like, you know, hustle. He came to my school though, and you know, he was just trying to tell all the bad kids to be good, how he did time in prison, etc. And I guess I took a liking to the dude, and he was just like, yo, come see me. Let's, you know, chop it up. I'll give you some knowledge. He's the one that ended up teaching me about like the black man, our history, etc. But outside of that, you know, he kind of like beautifully meshed like our struggle and entrepreneurship into like one message. Like he planted the seed in my head from young that you should never work for no white man. Like just like if you plan on being a radical,
Wait,
really
not work for a white man or not work with white men?
Nah, you could work with them, but don't work for them. Work for yourself.
Got it. Okay.
You feel what I'm saying? And make a long story short, as a kid, like I didn't really have much confidence or whatever the case may be, because and it's not to say like I ain't have confidence in general. Like I was definitely great at interacting with people, but in terms of just like performing in school and shit like that, like I didn't really care to be there. Like I don't know why I was there. I'm just like, why equal MXB my dick? You know what I'm saying? But you know, I basically like virtually dropped out. Like I wasn't going. This dude was there all day. He becomes school. At some point, I asked him, I'm like, yo, how you make money? And I'm seeing how he make money, but like, I don't get it, you know? And at like 14, this dude took me to Chinatown, and I bought a bunch of fake Jordans. He fronted me like $2,000, and I bought like a bunch of fake handbags from Canal Street and shit. And he was teaching me about like demographics and whatnot. And yeah, lo and behold, I had my own table set up, and I was selling fake Gucci and fake Chanel, you know, just fake all types of shit for me. And of course, in that low income community, folks actually, you know, went out and bought what the fuck I was selling. And as a kid, that like that had an effect. Like it left a mark on me, because you know, other kids would make fun of me in school and shit. Nothing crazy, but you know, I just didn't have extra. And I used to see this guy. I used to be like, yo, bro, you sell fake clothes. Like, there's no way you making money. But sitting there watching him just stand outside for hours on end. The shift would start at 9, and he would leave at around like 7 p.m. And he's just standing there looking at his clothes. And of course, someone stops. You know, it's probably some lady looking for back to school shopping clothes. She wants her kid presentable, but she doesn't want to spend, you know, the actual luxury goods store prices. And boom, she'll spend $400 that one time because everything is presented so well, etc. So that right there, that got me like started as an entrepreneur. But my problem was I was great for this sort of thing, like a hustle. Like once I discovered it, I knew how to kind of keep the ball rolling with the hustle. But now, a nigga need real skills. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can sell water to a wheel sometimes, but I'm trying to build some shit. Like for me, I know how to work with software and shit right now, but not enough to monetize it. I want to get back into coding and shit. You know, if you could build an app or build a website or some shit like that, you know, you could go anywhere and you'll make some fucking money. Feel me? But what I don't want to do is be like a, how you put this shit? I just don't want to be. I don't want to be giving my life or selling my soul to somebody's like office. So
It's all a meditation ish. It doesn't make a difference what you're going to do. Whether you're a coder, a lawyer, a mechanical engineer, a civil engineer, a brain surgeon, a soldier, a priest, it does not make a difference. The real journey is enlightenment. And, basically, you have to make peace with yourself no matter what you do. And when you have that peace, you're going to rise in any organization that you work in because most people are easily gaslit, easily angered, and they have interpersonal and co-worker conflict. It's the same thing in a family unit. It's very rare that a family doesn't break up apart because the yoga or the meditation within that family to create successive peace and build upon success is a very rare skill, and it's not easily obtained. It's the precious pearl, or it is the nut of all philosophical or psychological endeavors, is how do you create and sustain peace through wisdom, through intelligence, through information, through all these things. I mean, you can't just talk it, you have to live it. So, that's why I'm saying don't worry about your career or your income. Focus more on, I hate to say it, but G-O-D. Not G-I-O, but G-O-D.
Not G-I-O-D. Don't ever say that blasphemy again in my face. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I think humans need to serve something. And if they don't, they're just going to serve their own personal short-term whims, right? They're just going to fuck everything that moves. They're not going to think about their long-term. They're just going to go on vacations like 6 times a year and not save any money. I have Dominican friends that go to back to the Dominican Republic like 6 times a fucking year on average. That's crazy, dude. They'll make money, they'll go there, they'll live like a king, they'll come back, they'll make money, they'll go back, live like a king. I don't know, man. This type of society doesn't incentivize or have the mechanisms or sustain the mechanisms of like when you were talking about the liberal upper class Republican, right? The innovators, the prophets, etc., that we do need liberals. I don't disagree with you, but the liberals have destroyed the foundational priority axioms, the religion, God. They've destroyed all these things because these liberals, they think that they're a new civilization, but they're just a counter reaction to Christianity, to tradition, to authority. They're just the counterbalance to that, right? And they think that they're a new civilizational state. And I think that when your entire ideology is just counter the opposite of us, right? You're not Christian, you're atheist or agnostic. You don't like kings, but you think that every man is a king or some shit and should all have the right same vote. We're just, I don't know, they're just shifting, chairs on the Titanic. I don't know, man. It's the best people in our society are in like Silicon Valley. All the midwits are in government. What the fuck is this bullshit?
Yo, so Gio, my bad, bro. I'm gonna let Isaac go, but I was gonna ask you a personal question. Alright, if Isaac not going, so Gio, what you do, bro? You like is that like Geo for geopolitics and shit? Like, what you do? You know what I'm saying? Because I think you intelligence or you work with like a politician party or something.
No, I don't do any of that. I'm a college dropout. I've been living on my own since I was 16, but I work in the hospitality field as a manager of a hotel, but I also have family businesses that I intend to and have equity in. I also have my own businesses, some online businesses that I've basically automated. What else? I'm active in my church community, a few associations. adheres to certain things. A few people in certain leadership organizations. I'm active in my church, so as far as like being in a leadership position there. I don't know. Yeah, like associations, things like that. And then I do that shit with the kids where I don't know. I just look out in like shitty jobs where these kids just need a nudge in the right direction.
Yo, Gio, you don't got no kids?
No, not yet.
Yo, I might have a system for you. I think it's so well seen.
Ish, my point is, if you were to live in a monastery for 2 years and you were to really do a lot of studying and meditation, you would basically be a very valuable asset to yourself and to any organization. So, it's unfortunate. America is very much, junior high, high school, college, graduate, doctorate, or you're working at Yum Brand Foods making tacos or driving a bus or doing anything you can do to try to maintain the good life or your minimum basic income to maintain your standard of living. But your standard of living changes with your intelligence, your tastes, your acquisitions, your collections, your endeavors, your travels, etc., and what your passions are. So, but the real truth is, you don't have to go to a Zen monastery school to learn these things. You can go to your local library and just read books onto Clown House and make it a fucking PhD, and no one's going to stop you. That's what Gio was talking about earlier with that individual whose mother was a prostitute, but his father left him a great book collection. He went through tremendous struggles, but his wisdom and his intelligence came from one place and one place only, books, plus his natural intelligence. But it's the books that expanded his consciousness, his perspective, his dialogue, his play. You've only got so many hours left to conduct your play on the stage. You need more scripts. You need more information, more intelligence to make your theatrical life, your performance great. So, thanks for giving me my end card, Ish, and I wish you well on your journey into Ishkanda. It's a great journey.
I don't know, man. It's just like I think Nietzsche was onto something. Ish, you're muffled. I don't know why, but I think we can hear you. But I think Nietzsche was onto something where he kind of came to a realization that liberalism in its true form can only be Nietzschean. And I think that's a lesson that a lot of liberals have not realized, that he's basically pointing out that only Ubermensch can be great in, the free societies, essentially. But I think that liberal societies also push down Ubermensches. Like, it doesn't cultivate a society where we have more brilliance. I don't know. We have so much access to opportunities in this country, and most people don't even, care to. They become just uber capitalists who just care about money. I don't know. Like, it's so crazy that like the conservatives can't even muster up 2 to 10,000 people to basically be activists like the lefties and infiltrate all these institutions slowly. Why haven't we tried that in the last 100 years? It's kind of pathetic to me. So, out of 350 million people, 80 million people, let's say we have let's say we have 60 million voting conservatives. Out of that, we can't muster even 10,000 people like the progressives can. Do you know how fucking blackpilling that is to me? I feel like what's his name, Lot, when he was in Sodom and Gomorrah, and God's like, look, there's not even any good people in the city, and Lot's like, no, there's got to be at least 100 good people in the city, man, at least 100. And God's like, I checked, there isn't 100. And this is like the inverse, and I'm like, don't we even have 10,000 people who can be like the leftists and infiltrate every institution, change laws? Why can't we do this?
Listen, you have to change your own consciousness. If you want to change the consciousness...
Shut up. We've heard that same fucking 17 times already.
I think concerned.
Go ahead. Let's see what Isaac has to say, man.
No.
Ish, real quick, and then we'll go back to you.
Yeah, what's not making sense to me is like, I think earlier on you were talking about how we're saying more Americans should adopt WASP culture, but isn't WASP culture what promotes this degeneracy, like this unaccountable liberalism, not holding each other accountable?
No. I'm saying to be economically successful in this country, you have to adopt. Yes. I agree with you. It is degenerate. It is a merchant class society. It is like a peasant merchant class society where they want everybody to be equal. They wanted to racinate themselves. Like, think about how merchants were in ancient societies.
Yeah.
They weren't rooted to the country, right? If a country's at war, they go to another country, and then they make money and they come back.
Have you heard
they
of?
may come back or they might not, right? This
Have
is
you
like
heard
the
of the
lifestyle
Medici
of a
Codex?
Western person.
There's a book.
I've heard about the Medici family. But
It's called the Medici. It's called the Medici Codex. It's basically, in my opinion, a mercantilistic Jesuit, system of colonization. And so, there's multiple books. It's a collection.
Yeah, that is what the Catholic Church, especially the Spanish and the Portuguese, actually
Yes.
like to do around the world. That is
So the Italians, the Spanish.
They're trying to open up just to give the people a little bit of background to that. The Catholic Church and the Portuguese and the Spanish found Japan before the Dutch and the English, and they were keeping it a secret because they wanted to convert as much people as possible, get all the political influence, get all the access to ports, open up all these countries on their own, and they wanted to spread Catholicism.
It's basically Enlightenment. It's the resuscitation of the Latin system, and that's what the Medici Codex. It basically corporatizes and basically reductionized. It's a new age Roman economic model, which is very successful. And it does take great risk. I mean, anybody, I have a small sailboat. It's getting put in the water tomorrow. And if you've ever spent any time on boats, you got to realize that as a land-born person who's never traveled on boats, like our whole society is pretty much information technology at this point, which in many ways is like a hypnosis industrial complex.
Don't do it again. Right? But here's the thing, right? But when the Catholics did it, they were able to Catholicize a lot of the people that they encountered when they were not civilized. And then if they were the Japanese, they tried to intervene in their politics and influence people and convert people, right? But the Protestants, they were less so with the religiosity. The culture, to a degree, like the Protestant work ethic, the institutions, democracy, liberalism, yes, but they didn't insert the religion as much. And I think that shows the weakness, that they're weaker than the Catholics in that method, right? That they just rely on trade as their only unifying link, right? Spreading democracy, right? Spreading gay rights. That's like, we're a gay rights empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because
we're an empire of gay rights. Do you know how gay and retarded that is?
See, this is you
gay
gotta.
rights we're gonna be known as the gay rights empire.
You have to realize though that the empire itself has grown to such epic proportions that the absurdity of the medium, which is the propaganda, which is CRT, BLM, LGBTQ, DEI, it overlays a vast military and banking and energy industrial and biopharmaceutical industrial complex of unimaginable and financial prosperity, unimagined, and has never been collected and organized in the way that it is, essentially on Wall Street, diversified throughout the countless pensions and portfolios of hundreds of millions of people. We are living in a golden age, and people who can't see the perfection of the situation or the incredible complexity of such epic proportions unlike ever before. Human civilization is most definitely at its high point, but every high point definitely falls. So in my opinion, I know this, I don't want to derail you, so I'll just go on mute. Sorry.
Like, I had a bunch of poor families in my neighborhood that I knew a few people in, and they were having problems with funding their kids' school supplies every year, right? They're like, this is really expensive. And then I'm just like, why don't you guys buy this shit in bulk and then split it for the next 5-6 years, right? Or 8 years. what they did was they invested in other families near them and taught them how to do this essentially. So we have a whole bunch of families in my area who have basically decided to buy school supplies in bulk from Costco and then split it to their kids for like the next 8 years, basically. So I don't know why don't people do this? I don't understand. Like I don't understand why people can't find solutions on their own with their own people. But I know why, because they've been deracinated. They live with a bunch of strangers, with different religions, different languages, different cultures.
Listen, if
different way of life around you, there's nothing to unite these people. Nobody wants to know their neighbors anymore.
if the U.S. government wasn't so international in scope, and as opposed to being completely internal, and not being this vast global empire, and especially in expenditure and taxation, etc. I mean, the Greek-Roman gymnasium system of exercise, debate, and political speeches and listening and all that stuff, that is technically Clown House, But the thing about Clown House is, like, if you have earbuds, if you have an iPhone, you don't have like a button that you can just push to go on and off mic, right? You have to hold your phone and physically look and hit the unmute button. But imagine using this app in like a first-person perspective shooter game or something where you're living your life, but you're always plugged into like 10 other minds, and at any moment you can come off mic, with the click of a button. I mean, this app should be a technological communication, revolution, but it's really all about surveillance capital. So it is like an intelligence sniffer. I mean, it's doing this app and its applicability to whatever partners or vendors that Joe and Paul and Clown House work with. It's not just about profile IDs. This is like a networking communication simulacra type of technological innovation. But I'm just saying that, like, I just think this app is amazing, but at the same time, I know there's a genie in the bottle in this app just looking to get out, and the founders aren't even aware of it. Meaning that, you can do a lot of independent research on this app. This is like definitely, one of those incredible surveillance apps, not just for the founders and their partners that pay them for the information, but from an individual perspective standpoint. Like, this app is that perfect place to test theories, to surveil, to be the peeping Tom, or what's it called when somebody is a voyeur? This is like the ultimate voyeur lab. Like, look at the people in the audience. I mean, it's like people watching, sitting out at a patio and just watching people walk by. But this is all audio. So the audio is a little bit like a black and white movie. There's something different about a film without color. Because we can't see each of us is sitting in an office or a room or wherever we're at. There's this whole economic and also aesthetic preference and basically, standard of living or class behind each and every one of us. So I'm just saying that at the end of the day, like they like to say on Clown House, this app is a microcosm of a macrocosm, but the real value in it is if you study books and read information and are educated, you can come here to share obviously good news with people that you are living in a simulation, but you can hack that simulation by changing your consciousness, which really can only be done through books. The last thing I'll say is there's a document or a book called the Shin Shin Ming, and it says in there, the more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth you get. Stop thinking and end your problems. So from a personal development or a project management perspective, stop thinking and end your problems. It's a very reductionist philosophy, but it should help you on your great journey or your way. I'm just saying that, stop thinking and end your problems. Everyone is easily gaslit, and you may be one of those people. But once you realize that you do have a genie in the bottle and that genie gets activated when people gaslight you, you'll be more aware of the fact that somebody's throwing gasoline on you and lighting you on fire. So, Raboinoi Shalom.
Gaslighting us right now?
No, I'm trying to say that gaslighting on this app is
telling us that we're all special and we can all do it, and if we within ourselves and drink the secret stuff, that we can all be, super jam?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
One thing I really agree with you was when you said that you need a common religion. Like a common religion is definitely needed, or at least the ruling class needs to have a common religion. I think that's really needed. But what religion do you think that would be?
It's the law of the strong.
I mean, like, the thing is, even if they don't believe in it, they have to ritualize it until they just do it, right? So, like, even, I can't tell you that these aristocratic ruling classes throughout human history really believed in this, but what I can tell you were that they did a pretty good job at filtering out all the retarded ideas of the last 10,000 years of human history and passing down the pro-social norms and behaviors and rituals and standards that were actually pretty decent. Looking backwards in time, right, for what they had and what they had to deal with, that they were able to create great fucking empires where the average person couldn't even read, right? 99% of people couldn't read, and the administrators were the only ones, and they were able to construct great infrastructure projects without people needing to have to read. They were able to do something that we ourselves are not able to do at this point anymore. And we have so much more potential. We have so much more people. We have so much more resources than ever. And yet, our greatest, buildings will last like a few hundred years, maybe 100 years if they're concrete. Whereas Roman buildings have lasted for 1,500 years. German bridges and aristocratic buildings that were built during the Holy Roman Empire still fucking standing. Castles still fucking standing. Cathedrals still fucking standing. Still beautiful, right?
Listen, Roman philosophy, Greek philosophy.
And what Protestants do is build like fucking disgusting.
You're a protester, is what you are. I mean, that's what a Protestant is. It is a troll. It's against the norm or the situation. That's what a Protestant does. That's the whole Martin Luther thing of protesting.
This became the entire culture of a group of people. It's okay to have a few of them within your society who are well trained to be protesters, but what they did was unleashed it for every individual, right? Democracy, liberalism. These are all
That's the primary tenet of Buddhism as well, is to free other people. That's the primary tenet of Buddhism.
Bro, you can't make everybody Buddha and everybody.
I know, but this is why American history with the freedom movement and liberation movement, the microcosm, macrocosm, the whole journey.
For those people, because they were really pious religious people back then.
I know, but everyone is LARPing the same liberation.
No, but they were ascetic. They were disciplined. They were well behaved. They worked hard. They had these qualities that could make any shitty society work for a temporary period of time. The Protestant work ethic could make fucking shit work for a period of time. Because it's literally like innovation and hard work like crazy.
You don't understand the philosophy, it's not just economic, the religious, philosophical, and political attributes of Protestantism are a significant.
Like,
it's why the work ethic. It's why the work ethic is there. It's like a four-way street that goes one way. You can't. It's not just like a robot automaton work ethic. It's basically the innovations that come from going against the standard norm or the situation. It's a deviation from the norm. That's the whole political, religious, psychological philosophy of Protestantism, and why it works, because it's anti-system. It's yin-yang. It's creating a new economic opportunity outside of the paradigm.
They destroyed the foundation that needed to be the base of the yin and yang. They've destroyed the northern compass, the North Star, I'm sorry. They've destroyed, how did Nietzsche phrase it? Destroyed the horizons, how we even intuit meaning. Let me read this quote for you for Nietzsche, because he's saying what I'm trying to say to you, right? He's saying that we're going to try to recreate God. Nietzsche, one second. Horizons quote, alright? You need to hear it from him, because he puts it actually pretty beautifully. Let me see.
Listen, Nietzsche's name means not this, not that. That's what Niet and Che means. And look what Che Guevara did. He just became a murderous jungle combat psychopath. I mean, that's not necessarily intellectual. It's more intelligent to sit in an office and rule with a pen than it is in a jungle with a machete and a rifle and a Cuban cigar. There's a lot of murderous cocksucks that are, their legacy is still in power, but they're gone. Some people definitely rule by the sword, some people definitely rule by the pen. I'm just saying, America, in terms of its liberation, theology, and enlightenment, and going back to Jefferson and Adams and Washington, all embodied in Freemasonry. It's also embodied in Catholicism and Protestantism and Buddhism and Hinduism and Islamism. It's all wrapped up in the concept of the one God, which is unity.
Yes, but my problem with the secular liberalism and the divorce from the Protestant liberalism, right? That we've made the Protestant liberalism into a culture, and now you don't have Puritan evangelical progressives in Massachusetts.
Protestant liberalism is a sex fest, and it's a cult, and it's basically, the fall of society. I mean, it's just a bunch of women and children without men who can't stand them anymore because they're obsessed with do-goodery. Everything that is happening now has already been reconciled. That's what, I believe in coming to Clown House to tell people, like, turn off your television set because everything's already been reconciled. We're just repeating ourselves and it's already reconciled. Like, America is a dynamo in motion. The geopolitical, military, and economic paradigm, America, unfortunately, is still the top dog. And the Federal Reserve, just go to Washington, D.C. and New York City, and you will see that until those two cities are taken out, this way of doing business is never going out of business. And that's basically a mafia criminal type of system with a capo regime and a capos and the Godfather, which is the president. It is a dark Sith Lord empire which runs on Protestantism. It runs on that hard work ethic of never stop working. The whole purpose of business and entrepreneurship is to make so much money that you can drop out of the system and no longer have to participate with people and instead do your own paradigm. So I'm just saying America is driven by a hard work ethic, but it's also driven by communication propaganda.
Every society is, dude. That's what culture is. This is what the elites are filtering out, like I said earlier, right? Thank God we don't have all the garbage from the last 10,000 years at our disposal that we have to sift through to find the best values and the hierarchy of values and the rituals and amongst all the infinite different countries in the world. No, we don't have the time to do that as a country or a society or as a civilization to fucking spend 1,000 years researching every fucking civilization and then piece it together like a Jenga puzzle. And we're going to mix a little Buddhism here and a little Protestant. That's not how it works. Okay, certain things are made for certain people. Okay, tribal groups are different than agricultural groups, are different than pastoral groups, are different than industrial groups, and some of them will do good in certain societies, and some of them won't do so well in certain societies. Right? In America, to me, the problem is that the things that made it great, I agree with you. There were some things that, at its peak, for the Anglos and Germans who were Protestants, very good stuff. Right, a lot of inventions. Some, like some of the intellectuals were pretty smart guys. Right, we're losing those benefits of the Protestantism.
Well,
we have the negatives of it, but we have destroyed the foundation, which is Christianity. We have destroyed. We've become equalitarians. We've become liberals of mediocrity instead of excellence. Whereas the aristocratic founding fathers kept it an aristocratic republic because they didn't want this to happen. And we failed every metric and became this eventually anyway. So this society was classical liberals. So just real quick, this society was supposed to be a live and let live classical liberal society where you and your folks help each other out, or you're ravaged as a wage slave to industrialism.
Yeah, but look at decision making and communication and group theory. And so whenever a big decision has to be made, there's generally one chief engineer at the head of the table, and everybody, looks to that one chief engineer, and they all seem to concur at whatever decision, it is for whatever project or program or business or whatever endeavor, whether it's state, government,
Right, that's
etc.
another example. Most companies were CEO'd by engineers, right? And then that turned into
Well, that's what's happening
managers
at
and
Boeing.
managers.
The management
Yes,
class is
exactly.
stepping down and the engineering class is stepping up because they can't put out shoddy product and risk.
But we've been doing this for the last 100 years in America. Well, no, sorry, the last like 60, 70 years. That was in the
Right,
1950s.
right. So
Do
now,
do you know corporations used to have IQ tests for you to even apply to
I
their
mean, they take you. You had to take the.
jobs?
I took the when I worked at Smith Barney Citigroup. They made me. Well, they didn't make me. He offered to let me take the Meyer Briggs personality test and determine whether or not, based on my results, whether I
Oh
would
my
meet their
god, you
hiring
guys are
guidelines.
retarded.
So he's like, based on your
That's
results,
funny.
we definitely wouldn't hire you.
Oh my god, that's so fun. This is like, what do girls do? What is that shit? Astrology? This is like astrology. Holy fucking shit.
But I already got the job because I had a business mentor in college who was the vice president of the whole corporation, and he called up.
This is like that's actually what America is based. Like honestly, the way to get up in this country is networking, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
really the.
When they said, "Who do you want
That's
your
it.
business mentor to be?" I said, "Anybody that's worked on Wall Street. Find me anybody that's worked on Wall Street." And sure enough, they set me up with a guy that has like a $10 million house and a $300 million bank account. And he hooked me up, and he hooks everybody up because that's the kind of guy he is. Because when you're that rich, all you got to do is call one guy from the hundreds of people that you know personally, and
And be like, give my kid an internship or a job, right?
it's nothing. You call one person at an office and you say, "Hey, get this kid in the door." He
Like,
goes,
I'll
"Okay."
hire one of your kids if you hire one of my kids, right? I'll hire
No,
one of your
this guy's
nephews
so
if you hire
rich.
mine.
He's so rich, and this is the banking industrial complex. There is a pyramid of
No,
richness.
that's everything. No, that's not just the bank. That's just like Western capitalism.
No, I agree. It doesn't matter whether it's tech or energy or pharmaceutical. It's
Right.
all the same shit. It's technically
even the mafia is a
the mafia too.
nepotistic literal.
It's technically
yes,
one.
yes.
So therefore, it's all one giant hypnosis industrial complex.
I mean, every society, look, every culture and society and civilization generally are, but this society has different priorities, different things in the value hierarchy that they value more than anything.
My point is, we think that money is the outcome of the endeavor. Money, or our dollars, is a degrading art collection, and everyone is stuck in one giant global situation, which really is only people, but people don't take up much space. That's the crazy thing.
All right, enough.
So, yo, guys, I just wanted to know, like, do most Americans even believe in Christianity? Like, what are parts
Yes.
of it?
I would say there are more churches where they use it as a social club, right? And then some of them, like, there are really like pious Christians, like there are really Christian people who do behave Christian, but most people aren't. I would say.
No, that's not true. Every major U.S. city has a large pocket of Christians practicing Christianity, learning Christianity, communicating in Christianity. There are
No. But the problem in America, the point I'm trying to make here is that Tocqueville said that Americans didn't practice their religion in public, and that was the whole purpose of a lot of these people coming here. But all of them chose the almighty dollar when they realized they were losing customers because they publicly displayed their religious values. And so, for every one of these Protestants to make more money, the Quakers started the free economic trade zone in Pennsylvania in the 1730s, where people from the north and the south could come and just undercut everybody. And yeah, this is just an extension of that. It's a free economic trade zone in the United States.
Yeah, that never made sense to me, how you could just practice your religion at home. How does that not apply to every aspect of your
Because
life?
we individuated religion into the privacy of our home instead of socializing it because we wanted to make more money, apparently, in America. Tocqueville said this in On American Democracy. If you read, he came to America for like 8 months and observed it in the 1830s, and he's like, "What is going on
Wait,
here?"
where is he from?
France. He's a French aristocrat who was a Democrat who was pro French Revolution. And he was sent by the French government to observe American democracy to see what they could learn from it. And yeah, actually, this is actually
Chicken, isn't Popeyes owned by Chicken George?
It's interesting because even in Canada, apparently the Catholics right now are bigger than the Protestants. But Canada used to be like always had more Protestants. That's funny as hell. Like,
yes,
how does a minority?
Because they don't practice it, they don't pass it down, and then they give the freedom for the kids to not practice it, and then the communities are so like. And in the rural areas, it's more like communal, but in a lot of the suburbs and most of the coastal areas, it's like such mixes of different people that you don't have like a count that's like Irish Catholic or like German Lutheran anymore, right? It's kind of rare to see that at this point.
You gotta understand, religion and Christian circles is pretty much, it's like, look at Geo, the whole Korean Catholic Church as a whole in the United States is a voting bloc, and it's, I don't know what their breakdown is, but people are going to LARP in the country in which they live. And in America, Christianity is generally a safe religion to practice, So what I'm interested in Zen Buddhism, Hinduism, and, Roman Greek Stoic philosophy and other topics like that. But the thing about Zen Buddhism, if there's a main document, it's called the Shin Ming, and it says that the more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth you get. Stop thinking and end your problems. So from a problem-solving perspective, this app can be very useful if you use it that way. If you just come on here to create content, I think that's great too. This is a creative platform. But, Geo's rooms in terms of historicity, material history, economic history, financial history, technological history. And in terms of this app and, in terms of communication technology, information technology, that whole history and that colossal amount of information is so vast. And, knowing that I don't know computer science, electrical engineering, I can barely change a light bulb. My point is, there's another industry and another industrial complex. It's the Tony Robbins hypnosis business. And in many ways, that's the sales business. That's the whole Gordon Gekko, information is power. And maybe Gordon Gekko is, he's the iconography of intelligence, but using it for, nefarious means to make money on bets and gambling and stuff like that. Anyways, Raboinoi Shaloiloim, I hope you all are having a fabulous morning like myself.
You're such a character, dude. Oh my goodness.
Well, there's that scene with Bud Fox in the locker room. He goes, in all my, he says, he goes, in all my trading, I've never found a commodity more valuable than information. And so in terms of secrets and secret information, I have 1,000 books in my house. And in many of those books, I've read passages which I would consider secret psychological information, which can be very beneficial for anyone who can understand it. And one of those statements is, the more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth you get. And this app is that perfect audio testing ground to prove that from an observational perspective, and the uselessness of never-ending discourse.
Yes, but that's what democracy and liberalism supposedly rests on. So, that's what the society is.
Well, what I'm saying is, like I said earlier, I believe that
No, and look, let me go, right? So I don't disagree with you, and you're right. But when I go on YouTube, I don't see content where the best people in every field have become podcasters or are trying to teach everybody knowledge that you should know. Financial advisors, there's a plethora of them. You have to wait through 10,000 of them. You might, I don't know. It's just there's a lot of shit to sift through, right?
Well, that's why we live in a consumption. We live in a consumption paradox or a consumption dilemma. So, as a producer, as a creator, as a director, as a leader, as a founder, as someone with strength, you have to be the speaker, but you also have to be the consumer of good information. So, what I'm trying to say is if you haven't bought you know, 10 books this year in 2024 and read those books or read great things. You have to look at things in terms of neurolinguistic programming at the personal level. And that's why doing individual meditation work, breathing work, wisdom work, spiritual journey work, God work, education in that realm, you will always miss the mark in whatever endeavor you do. You will never really truly be happy, whether you're a successful lawyer, a doctor, etc. Because one of those great mysteries and puzzles that people do want to figure out is the concept of God and what it means at the individual level. It really does equal EQ IQ equals God. So you have to raise that EQ IQ up, and there's ways to do that. That's why I say the gymnasium method, the Greek Stoic Roman philosophical method of exercise and wisdom, or the yogic method of yoga and Hinduism, or whatever all the psychological information is in their 10,000 books. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, but then JFK asked Americans to stop being lazy and to work out and eat less, and then Americans were like, "Damn, man, but these potato chips are so fucking good," and then they got more obese. So asking nicely doesn't work in America. So what's next?
The point is, we are already in an equilibrium paradigm of ecstatic beauty and joy and rapture. The system's already so harmoniously balanced, there's no debate. Therefore, stop
There's
thinking
no
and
need
end
for
your problems.
violence. Yeah, that's it. There's no challenge anymore.
The point is
There's
secure the
only
perimeter.
like
That's the
there's
only
nothing.
that the only political situation in America that needs rectification is securing the perimeter of the country and our territories and possessions. That is the only
I
real.
disagree, bro. I think like it's like our education system is a failure. Our road to careers is a
But
failure.
look at it as a first
Um,
step of progression. How can you hope to change the education, the housing, every other
so
crisis?
how are we gonna get everybody to do yoga and meditation?
Well, I'm just saying from a government perspective, with all the money that they waste on their 100 million different bullshit
I
line
agree because
items.
look. I feel like in Korea, you know what they did to build up nationalism starting in the 1950s when they were rebuilding. Multiple times throughout the day, they would play the anthem. Everybody would stop what they're doing, everybody, and put their hands on their heart, right? And then every morning, they would do exercises together, whether at work or at school. So everybody in the country were doing the same exercises together, all at the same time.
That's great. I would do that if
Every
we
40
could do
minutes.
that. America should do that.
Yes, but we should do that, right? But even my dad trying to make that happen in my home, my mom was like, "Oh, stop making the kids do things," and he would try to have a morning service in the morning. She said, "Stop trying to make kids do things," and she was so grating over time that he just like fucking gave up after trying like 17 times to try it.
Yeah, well, it doesn't
So
matter. He
it's
implanted that memory in you now so you could share it with everyone now. Because if you ever have kids, you should be like your dad and convince your mom that it's a good thing and convince her with love and, passion. You can do whatever you want in this world as long as it's within the realms of the law. And the greatest violation of law is causing physical harm to somebody. There is no other violation of anything other than hurting somebody physically that is anything that's not civil.
look, but
So
I think like yeah, but you're individuating all these problems, whereas I see these as social problems, whereas pro-social behaviors that were ritualized in rituals, customs, traditions, religion, norms, right? And in America, maybe even the civic norms and the Anglo-Protestant norms, right? These things, or the Christian, sorry, liberal norms, they've been eradicated, and there's no way to reconstruct this shit back. And even the American dream contributed. Even America, the patriotism in America, right? But like this grouping of identities, the economic one doesn't work. The American dream doesn't work when you're not in a growth economy anymore, right? B, there's a lot of problems coming up in the next generation. Like the boomers are the most educated and experienced people in our country in almost every industry except like tech and shit. And they're about to all die off, and we have nothing but Zoomers to replace them, right? And millennials and Gen X.
listen, Lutheranism, Protestantism, Catholicism, is letting gay people do
All right,
whatever
so
they want so they can figure out the conundrum. It's a scientific experiment of observation where the Christians today in America are letting people be as dumb as they want and as stupid as they want so they can see the process of failure. There's no other way for people to do experimentation unless they can be as free and as stupid as possible, to be as clownish as possible, to figure out that what they're doing isn't working. Every one of these CRT, BLM, LGBTQ, DEI people have emotional temper tantrums. They have mood swings. Why is that? Because they are not enlightened. They're still burdened with their CRT, BLM, LGBTQ, DEI. They have not freed themselves from these concepts. And as I said earlier, I heard two girls earlier.
Right, and we're letting these people run this country, right? Plus,
Yes, 100%. I mean, but with regards to Christianity.
You're telling me that this is not a problem. To me, this is a huge problem.
No, I'm saying it is the problem.
Hold up. Having women, right, vote in more taxes for themselves through welfare, right? So that they themselves in the next few generations cannot have their own fucking kids because they're funding poor people's kids. And then they're crying up about it on Instagram. And 50% of women over 35 are never going to be married anymore and have children, right? That is a problem, right?
No,
And
societal collapse.
Choice, it's not, and just real quick, free choice is not going to change that. You know, individual manifestation of self and actualization is not going to fix this problem.
I get it, but the medium is the message, and the simulacra, the simulation of mainstream media is.
Bro, that's been the whole message of America. Pull yourself by the bootstraps for like the last fucking 200 years of the conservatives.
That's not what I'm saying. I think that change is coming, no doubt. I think rapid change is always the norm, and it's always surprising and shocking.
It's stable. No, to me, it's like slow, and then everything happens all at once, and then it's slow. And then
Well, yeah, that's the Chinese saying, slow, fast. I mean, men and women don't trip on mountains, they trip on stones. America is going to fumble this ball somewhere along this, his historical line.
We've already fumbled it. We've destroyed all the foundations of the civilization that prevents us from replicating the great men of excellence. Even Harvard, which used to be a shining beacon of fucking, everything. Jesus Christ, like Asians like masturbate to fucking Harvard in like middle class and upper class.
Well, from a civilizational perspective of the number of people that are housed, armed, well fed, and have general security, this empire model is a tremendous success with only 360 million citizens. Look at the populations of China and India combined of over 2 billion. This tiny little English-speaking empire still seems to have quite a bit of sway and say, and swagger and dagger.
I'm not debating that America will be on top geopolitically, even if it goes down the drain. I'm talking more in the long term rather than short-term gains and losses here, man.
Why are we attributing all the time like material success to like having a great civilization?
Because it should correlate to great philosophy. If you have a superior wisdom and knowledge and understanding, you should therefore be the benefits and the recipient of those fruits of knowledge. Don't you agree?
I don't think so. Like it's a part of it, but I don't attribute it to like being a great civilization in totality. I think having material, success is good, but also you need to look at other parts of the society that can be like, just because like look at Japan. Japan is doing pretty good economically, but they have a lot of disgusting social ills in their society. So I don't see that as I don't know. I'm more religious probably, so I probably see things differently. But
no, Japan is a good example. They have a hyper-hygienic society. They are extremely well organized, highly sober, highly work automatons. They're an incredible country. I mean, if I could, I would drop out of society here.
That's the outsider.
I know, but my point is, you have a perspective, I have a perspective, but there is a universal consciousness that, in my opinion, supersedes our perspectives. And it's just metaphysics or particle physics. It doesn't matter your differentiation from my differentiation with regards to religious choice or communication choice. We do share a shared super consciousness. It's my opinion that the universe is listening and is conscious of the things that we say. I think that.
But Edmund, wouldn't you agree that that's all being clouded in the West because all we're focused is on money, and individual success, and no one's caring about the long term, and no one's developing the institutions that we have the freedom to in America, and the anti-aristocratic fear in America prevents people from passing down ideas hereditary.
Anti-aristocratic fear. There is an aristocratic class in this country. Just go to Newport Beach, go to Manhattan Beach, go to Hermosa Beach. There's people living in $20 million houses.
These are all yes, but they're all capitalists. These people aren't in government. These people aren't actually replacing these midwits so that and preventing midwits from coming in with their fucking stupid ideologies like communism. All right. Look.
Everyone still has the same health struggles.
Look, I let you talk. Shut the fuck up. Look, I've told you this before, but a lot of older societies put merchants either right above or right below peasants. All right? They wanted to separate them from the upper classes to prevent their aristocratic institutions, their churches, their scholastics to be purely interested by money and tainted by money. And they were wise enough to do that as societies. And what I'm saying is our society isn't even wise enough to do that we used to have the Boston Brahmins and the Southern gentry be the aristocratic class in America. Then they got replaced by academics, theorists, and all these fucking humanists and fucking rationalities, masturbators. Okay, we lost all the priests. We lost all the other types of what we say. We lost all that. We lost all those older institutions that we need to make the society function, right? The preacher who created John Witherspoon, who created Princeton University, Princeton College, he was able to create an education system using Protestantism to create a pretty damn good education system that produced really smart people, right? And Harvard was similar. The American public school system was originally based on the British system that produced a lot of smart men. You look at British history, even in the 1800s, they were still producing really fucking smart men, right? Pitt the Elder, Pitt the Younger, right? Samuel Johnson. There are so many brilliant men that they were able to develop despite those things. So they were able to maintain certain institutions that we were unable to maintain, and we are unable to maintain in America. So these problems to me are important to the degree that it's either that or this eternal back and forth between the rich and the poor, right? All right, so let me play. Isaac, you have something to say? I'm gonna play back.
Just gonna add one more thing, and if a second world country and a second world nation whose people are mostly content with themselves and see themselves as being very successful and they're happy with their life, and you compare that to a first world nation where a lot of the people are depressed, but they're economically thriving, I would view the second world nation to be more successful. And I think the happiness of those people and the contentment of those civilians really matter.
Yeah, but that's just your opinion, Isaac. Gio, before you play your clip, let me make one point. You know, if you take the LSAT, you have to do a logics test, and you have to create these matrices in order to try to solve the puzzle. My point is, you know, you don't have a title in your room, okay? And generally, the opposite of every title is the truth on Clown House, or it is creative. Like yesterday, I was in Limpin' and Pimpin'. My point is, I said in a room, you know, I said, do you believe that all communication is hypnosis? And some young black girl said, no, I don't fucking believe that, no. And I said, you don't believe that all communication is hypnosis? She said, no. I said, now think about that, and what if it was true? And so, again, it goes back to the point is that the opposite of what the words are that we see is generally the truth. And that's the essence of all propaganda, is just bold-faced lie, because the lie is the truth when you read it from the reader perspective versus the distributor perspective of saying propaganda, commuting propaganda. I served with a Thai military officer, and during their Orange Revolution, I said, what did you do? He said, oh, yeah, we did, you know, propaganda. He's the attaché to the military. Anyways, my point is he works in intelligence. And so the military in Thailand, you know, is the de facto government in many ways there. And they have to message propaganda to counter the radical protesters. So I'm just trying to say that, remember, all communication is hypnosis, or hypnosis communication is communication hypnosis. The word hypnosis should not be discounted because it's similar to the word gnosis, Gnosis. Look that up if you don't know what gnosis is. It's fundamental to Christianity. The early, founders or the apostles.
You said you were going to make one point, Bunker.
But look at the term apostle, apostate. They were essentially counter-revolutionaries, anti-government, anti-religious, break away, leave us alone. This is a radical new philosophy of peace. Because back then in the barbaric, archaic ages of insane, but anyways, nothing is new under the sun. Everything that is has already been, and what we're doing is repeating an infinite pattern. That's my opinion.
I don't disagree. I mean, yeah, I think sometimes people are more responsible. It's strong times, weak times, all that shit, but, Joseph de Maistre said that every society has the type of society it deserves. It has a government that it deserves. To me, that's what I'm trying to explain to you about America. That currently America has the government it deserves.
I have a question. Hi, Gio. Hi, Republican. So, Republican, are you saying that this very moment right now has already happened?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be here now from a pragmatic, practical perspective of personal development, work development, career development, nation development. It's all connected. That's why I say if you want the peace movement in the world, the first place to start is obviously within yourself. You can't be automatically reactive, and people are going to gaslight you to prove that you are automatically reactive to everything you hear and see and etc. So you really do have to practice silent meditation. I do yoga, I go to the gym, I read books like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus. I want to commune with God. Most people are not comfortable talking about God all the time, but it says, think about God as much as thou breathest. So the point is, you can come on Clown House and go through this patterning and this infinite regression and circulation of nothing, just chronic useless discourse hypnosis. This app is a toxic cloud, but there is a lightning bolt that can come out of it, and you can be that lightning bolt. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Nice.
You can do it. Yeah.
Gio, where's the video?
Yeah, I'm gonna play it right now. Yeah, I'm gonna play it. Here we go. This is Alexis de Tocqueville, who was a French aristocrat, who was a Democrat, who came to America to see what he could learn about American democracy and what lessons he could learn. Here we go.
I'm good stuff, Republican, by the way.
Democracy was achieved by such a long, arduous, and heroic struggle that it can feel embarrassing, even shameful, to be disappointed by it. Perhaps the best guide to such feelings, and to modern democracy in general, is the 19th century French aristocrat, Alexis de Tocqueville. For de Tocqueville, democracy was a highly exotic and new political option. He'd been born in 1805, when Napoleon was the populist dictator of half of Europe, but he presciently believed that democracy was going to be the future all over the world, and so he wanted to know, what would that be like? To find out, he set out to America with the grant from the French government. He arrived in New York, together with his friend Gustave de Beaumont, in May of 1831, and then embarked on a 9-month journey around the new nation. After his journey, he compiled his thoughts into one of the greatest works of political philosophy, Democracy in America, published in 1835. In the book, de Tocqueville was particularly alive to the problematic and darker sides of democracy. 5 issues struck him in particular. In France, the society that de Tocqueville knew from childhood, making money didn't appear at the forefront of people's minds. The poor had almost no chance of acquiring wealth, and the tiny upper stratum of landed aristocrats didn't need to make any more money. As a result, for very different reasons, money was not a way to judge a life. However, the American that de Tocqueville met on his journey believed constantly that through hard work it was possible to make a fortune, and to do so was entirely admirable and right. Money seemed to be quite simply the only achievement that Americans respected. For example, de Tocqueville observed that in America, people believed that a book that did not sell well just couldn't be any good, because the only test of goodness for any item was how much money it happens to make. Democracy and capitalism had thus created a seemingly equitable but also very flat and oppressive way for humans to judge each other. In a chapter of Democracy in America entitled Why the Americans Are Often So Restless in the Midst of Their Prosperity, de Tocqueville sketched an enduring analysis of the relationship between high expectations and dissatisfaction, between political equality and envy. He wrote, when all the prerogatives of birth and fortune have been abolished, when every profession is open to everyone, an ambitious man may think it is easy to launch himself on a great career and feel that he has been called to no common destiny. But this is a delusion which experience quickly corrects. When inequality is the general rule in society, the greatest inequalities attract no attention, But when everything is more or less level, the slightest variation is noticed. That is the reason for the strange melancholy often haunting inhabitants of democracies in the midst of abundance, and of that disgust with life sometimes gripping them even in calm and easy circumstances. The old, rigid, hierarchical European system that had denied all hope of social movement to the poor was unjust in 1,000 all too obvious ways, to Tocqueville recognized, but it had offered those on the lower rungs one notable freedom. The freedom not to have to take the achievements of quite so many people in society as reference points, and then find themselves severely wanting in status and importance as a result. Typically, we think of democracy as being the opposite of tyranny, but Tocqueville noticed that democracy could easily create its own specialized type of tyranny, that of the majority. Democratic culture, he thought, often ends up demonizing any assertion of difference, and especially cultural superiority, even though such attitudes might be connected with real merit. In a tyranny of the majority, a society has an aggressive, leveling instinct. It's regarded as a civic virtue to take on anyone who seems to be getting above themselves and to cut them viciously down to size. Tocqueville was disturbed by the way in which in the United States, people of no distinction refused to think that anyone could be better than them just because they had, say, trained to be a doctor for 7 years or studied the law for 2 decades or written some very good books. A healthy and admirable reluctance to defer to people too easily encouraged an unhelpful refusal to accept any kind of submission at all. And yet, as de Tocqueville saw it, it simply must be the case that some people in society are wiser, more intelligent, kinder, or more mature than others, and therefore should be listened to with special attention. Democracy was, de Tocqueville thought, fatally biased towards mediocrity. You suppose that democracy would encourage citizens to have an open mind. However, de Tocqueville came to the opposite conclusion, that one could find few places with less independence of mind and true freedom of discussion than in America. Trusting that their system was fair and just, Americans simply gave up on critical thinking and put their faith in newspapers and so-called common sense instead. Furthermore, as this was a commercial society, Americans were very conscious of not wanting to step too far out of line with their neighbors, who might also be customers. It was better to trot out cliches than to try to be original, and never more so than when there was something to sell. Although de Tocqueville says a lot of really quite grim things about democracy and America, de Tocqueville wasn't anti-democratic or anti-American. He was just trying to show why living in a democracy could in some key ways be really quite annoying and frustrating. He is teaching us the stoic lesson that certain pains just need to be expected. Don't be too surprised or shocked. Don't come along with the wrong expectations. Politics in a democracy is going to be pretty awful in some major ways. It's not that we're doing anything specifically wrong, it's just the price you pay and should be willing to pay when you give ultimate authority to everyone.
There you go. Sound familiar?
Yeah, definitely.
Like New York Times bestseller are the only books. Everybody reads like Malcolm Gladwell, right? Nobody reads anyone great anymore. Harry Potter is popular, right? Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't even think at that time America was like that. I thought it was a recent thing, you know? In the 20th century. I didn't know even in the 1800s. This is the culture they had.
What are you talking about, Isaac?
Like Americans being hyper-capitalistic.
Oh, you mean the subdivision or I mean, listen, it's optimization, Isaac. What do you think is so remarkable about, compulsive, chronic, obsessive optimization? Like that's how all progress gets eked out. I mean, it's so minute and progressive that I mean, just think about how insignificant everyone is in this room. I mean, do you think you could ever create a semiconductor from scratch? I mean, we are retarded. You have to give up to the faith of essentially the all, which is the cornucopia of all the industries with millions of workers. I mean, my point is if you have an income, if you have housing, if you have food and clothing, I mean, consider yourself one of the lucky ones. You could be in the Congo in a mining pit right now looking for diamond scratch. Like you have no idea the horror of some people's fight for survival and the toxic work environment that they have to live. I mean, have you ever crawled into a mine, and had a collapse and had to crawl out? Like, have you seen the videos of those African workers coming out of the pit holes while the mine is caving in? It's incredible. It's incredible what people live on a day to day to support themselves and the people that they associate with.
Well,
I think the world is a zero-sum game. Like if there's many people like that, like we cannot live the current life we have right now. So
I don't know, like when I travel, like when I've been to the third world and the second world, and I noticed one thing, like these people seem more content than me. In my opinion, it's subjective, but they just seem more content.
Well, see, that's the thing is you haven't figured out your own personal equation how to create sustainable contentment. You have to experiment to figure that out. I have heard it said going to the gym, getting your fat ass on a treadmill and lifting weights for an hour can be very beneficial to one's mental contentment because your body is a manufacturing industrial complex, and when you go to the gym, your hormones, your fucking glands and shit, you're squeezing. You're producing chemicals which affect your consciousness, your psychology, your happiness, your joy, your peace, your intelligence, your development, your physical resuscitation, your healing. All that shit is impacted by 1 hour of getting your fat ass in a gymnasium. Isaac, is your fat ass going into a gym 1 hour a day?
No, but my job is physically tasking, and I agree with you. You're right about the gym, but that's more like of a small solution. Like I did find a solution eventually, which was
No, you sound like all my fat depressed friends who say they're not happy. They're all fat depressed. They don't go to the gym for 1 hour a fucking day. I can't have a conversation with people anymore until they go to the gym for 1 hour a day and say, okay, I've been going to the gym 1 hour a day for 3 weeks straight. Let's talk. You're right. I feel great.
I found my contentment. You know, this like when I'm traveling, this is the times where I didn't really believe that much in religion. You know, but I did find my contentment, and I feel like it came from my religion and my spirituality. And now I know I have a purpose. I didn't know I had a purpose before, but I know
You
now
don't have a purpose. Do you know? I've heard it said there's only like 800 people that have ever lived. You know? Have you ever lived for even one fucking hour, Itzhak?
I lived for an hour. I have a purpose, bro. My purpose is to worship God. You know, that's my purpose.
I don't know, Republican. I think you're having that liberal fallacy that everyone can orient their lives and arrange their lives. And I would suggest you read Mimetic Theory by Rene Girard, where he posits that most people aren't able to actualize themselves. And if they're lucky enough, they have enough good role models and institutions or other people to mimic around them, that they do that, right? And our society in the West, it's harder to sift through all the garbage, all the Cardi B's, all the twerking to find good role models. Those people are generally silent. They're putting in work. They're not the ones looking for attention on TikTok, right? So it's hard to find, right? You know, America could have been a, mentorship-based society, capitalism, where you have to pass on your skills to someone, right? No, we don't do that. You know, do you know how many people Americans used to have so many mentors in their fields and things like that, and nowadays you're lucky if you get one. You know, my sister got really lucky in her field, and she's like, "Yo, most of these people don't even have mentors," and I'm like, "I know that." It's not a thing that we do in America as much anymore. And Me Too fucked that up the little that we had even more. So my sister's male mentor decided to stop mentoring her during Me Too, saying he couldn't risk his entire career to even risk it. Right? And she eventually got lucky and found another female mentor who was really good too. But it's rare. If every one of us successful people mentored 1 to 2 to 3 people in our life, right, from our 40s and on or something, how much of a replication could we achieve? But I don't agree with you because we have all this ability and none of us do. Like, what do you mean, dude? Like, I don't know, man. We don't have enough we're not an action-based society where maybe we need barbarians to invade us or something. We need something to reinvigorate us or something. I don't know.
You don't understand. I have served in the U.S. Army. There are combat veterans that have served in Mogadishu, Gulf War, Afghanistan, Iraq. These are trained combat killers.
The U.S. military came out and said the next generation of people are not physically fit, that most of them would not pass any tests. And they also came out with another thing where 90% of males polled said that they would never join the army for any purposes, even to defend their own country.
Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter. It only takes 10,000
What
highly.
do you mean it doesn't matter?
It doesn't. There's still enough elite soldiers and enough weapons to destroy anything that poses a threat to the United States of America. This is a fully solidified country. My point is, um, I don't have a point. That is, I'm trying to tell you that the more you think, the more you speak, the further from the truth
I
you
swear to
get.
God, if you should repeat it
Stop
enough times-
thinking and end your problems, Raboy Shalolan.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Have you guys seen those videos like
Yo,
when they do these social experiments and they're asking a bunch of old people, "What's your biggest regret?" And there's a guy who, like, he said, the biggest thing was money. Like, they regretted chasing money. It's like all these old, quote unquote, lost, people, like, they're regretting chasing money. Like, they really feel like that was the biggest waste of time. I don't know, man. I don't think it's the way to go. Materialism, chasing money, like.
You need a balance of equilibrium. You have to have income, you have to have housing, you have to have some standard of living, and that's a fact. And traveling gets exhausting. People like routine. Routine is security. And if you don't have routine in your life, you don't have success in your life. It takes routine, it takes standardization of living, it takes reasonable security. I take the train to work 2 days a week. There is no security. There's never been security, and it's a fucking shit show. It's a clown town run by clown mayors, clown everybody. Everybody's a fucking clown in America, and that's the reality you live in.
And that's what I think happens when you chase money.
But then you want these people to self-actualize, and I'm saying that's not gonna happen. You need to force them. You need to go JFK on steroids and say, all right, we're going to force everybody to exercise 2 hours a day at school or at work. You can't trust you anymore. That's it. GG. You don't get a choice anymore. You had your choice.
If I have to ask you this question, what do you think, and honestly, is America's biggest threat on the long?
Themselves, the whole system in itself. Outside its border? Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
Give more context. Give more context. I'm asking you, outside of America, what is the number one threat to almost the world economy in general? What is the one nation that you would say is the biggest threat and will be a big threat to the United States government as
I can't tell the future. That's a really hard question. So many things can change.
Come on.
Dude, it's hard. I don't know. There's too many variables I have to think about. So many variables. If someone controls the Suez Canal, right? They could change the economy tomorrow, right? So I don't know.
Yo, Gio, but what if the 2-hour exercise regimen in the morning wasn't actually mandatory? But more like, it's here.
Voluntary. Yeah, that's a problem. That's what we have in America in our gym classes, where 70% of the kids don't even try. So when I throw the ball at them, they just step aside and try not to catch the ball, so they can keep talking with their friend. And then the teachers give them a C or a D, and then they don't care.
Damn.
What's the one country that is dependent on food all over the world? Has over 1.6 billion people.
What is it? Which one?
It's constantly.
Is it
Are you
Great
talking about
Britain,
China?
Germany, United States? Which one? Come on, just tell us. We don't know. Bro, mister.
Of course, it's fucking China. God damn, man. What do you think? Look, have you ever thought, I'm just saying in general, I'm not saying whatever, but have you ever really thought about the consequences of living in
Wait, I thought you used to. Wait, I thought for the last. Wait, I'm so confused. I thought you were arguing that.
No, it's not that I'm anti. No. It's not that I'm pro-US. I just want you guys to have a war. Yeah, I'm pro-Africa. That's I just.
Good luck, bro.
So
You see
the
the
reality
man.
is,
Good luck, man.
if you. No, listen, this is what I'm saying.
Yes.
I need America
Hey,
to
just
be
let him finish.
strong.
Let him finish,
I
please.
need
Let him
strong.
finish.
Okay, Mr. Africa, one quick question to Republicans. What's the solution?
Wait, QQ, just 1 second. If you want to talk to Republican, you can add him and wait.
Oh, yeah, one of you have to
Go do
wait.
your own thing. Go do your own thing, right? We're gonna let Mr. Masanda go right now, and then you can ask him later if you want. But we're gonna let Mr. Masanda go. Go ahead. Mr. Masanda, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, Africa, go.
Gio.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I think he was done.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead, Mr. Masanda.
Yeah. I was just saying. So here's the thing. It's not that I'm pro China or pro US. I just know that at the end of the day, I just don't want to be fucked over by anybody, on my particular nation per se. So the reality is, China and both the US do have a lot of global influence in the world. It's just common sense for me as a guy to have both those nations have war with each other. And if they have war, the question now should be which one of you would win. The truth is, like history has shown, there won't be any winner. Or at least there won't be a strong enough winner because you have to rebuild it though. So to be honest, that's what I'm betting on. So, and if China wins, I'm being honest, they're gonna be absolute rulers of the United States government. US people are gonna be forced into working in those factories. Republicans' child is gonna be building iPhones for fucking living. And the opposite, I'm not sure it could happen because as we see, that the world's global trade, you know what I mean? They're actually producing almost everything at like the smallest level for most part. So I'm just saying, America, if you wanna still own back your manufacturing, even though it's not the US, you really need to start a war with China. Support Donald Trump and God bless America.
Let's go. Let's fucking go.
God bless America, man. I'm being honest, man. Y'all need to vote for Donald Trump or it's over for the world, man. I'm just an American.
Don't vote for
Without Trump, this world is nothing, man. He's the last hope of the free world.
No.
So vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, bro, I gotta give you this.
Yeah, how would a war benefit? How would a war between America and China be beneficial to Africa? Yeah, mister.
Yes, I'm listening.
Yeah, how would it be beneficial? A war between China and the United States? How would that be beneficial to Africa?
Because if you don't have it, they're gonna win. If you don't have the war, they're gonna win. It's just a trajectory. The truth is, all you're doing is waiting for the inevitable. When the year 2040 happens, when China obviously has mass production capacity more than anything in this shit planet, you won't even have the choice to fight it back. I'm not saying they can beat you. I'm saying they're gonna beat you. And there's gonna be a situation where you can't do shit but make a bunch of quotations on the internet. Look, it may sound like a joke and whatnot, but just bear in mind that billionaires know more than you. Donald Trump is the most patriotic America has ever lived. And at the end of the day, the amount of ridicule that I've seen this app give him, it's just wow, bro. It's like, this are Americans who I'm listening to, attacking a man who's trying to defend his nation. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. These are self-haters. Y'all are a bunch of self-hating Americans, and you got the nerve to ridicule him, you put him in jail, and for really being a patriot. It's disgusting, man.
Welcome to democracy or oligarchy with different factions who are influential or can be influenced, whether by lobbying or social networks, and where it's academics and these fucking retards running society, experimenting on people every fucking day for the last 100 years. Yeah, let's see what happens if all the black people in the South, all the poor blacks and whites, all moved up north, like in a 30-year period, with no leaders coming with them, with no ruling class, with no aristocratic group of people, with no preachers coming, with no intellectuals coming. Let's just see what happens if we send all the poor blacks in the South to the North. Oh yeah, let's see what everyone has an access to a phone and TikTok that can start a bank run.
Your question, man.
Oh
Okay,
my
let me ask
God,
the Republican.
I'm
Who
so
would you
scared
take
every
Republican?
fucking second, dude. I'm just so fucking scared, Mr. Usanda, that someone in America will start like a fake bank run, and then like it'll grow, and then we'll have another Great Depression. Oh my fucking God, Lord have mercy. All it would take is one fucking teenager to start this trend. Oh my God, Lord.
You know, I've talked to a lot of Black Americans that say they'll destroy Africa before they let anything happen to the U.S. I think that's the problem, man. I think America does not have a lot of patriots, right? I'm sure Republicans would end the fucking UK, wherever the hell these immigrant parents come from, before they touch America. That's what I'm saying. I think America doesn't have patriots. Donald Trump is a German who's willing to destroy a fucking German economy for his goddamn America, because he understands that at the end of the day, if you're not a patriot, if you do not protect the place where you grew up in, eventually the other person is going to rise up. And protection doesn't necessarily mean protecting them like militarily, but protecting them from the future that's coming. China is getting stronger, bro. They're getting stronger every day. And eventually they are going to come for
them
you.
all our manufacturing. We literally handed it over for free. For free. And what did these people get in return from getting rid of all these industries? They got call center jobs, they got domino jobs, they got Walmart jobs in replacement. What the fuck is this? They went from their grandparents went from making $50,000 to $70,000 in fucking coal mines, $30,000 back then, which was like $60,000 now, and were able to live, send their kids to college, and we gave that away from Walmart jobs. Fan fucking tastic. And it's the Americans' fault. They wanted more rights. They wanted more fucking time off. They wanted minimum wage. They wanted all this shit. So you're competing with the rest of the world in industry, and you want all these privileges that make your labor more expensive, and then you don't want to multiply your productivity. What did you think was going to happen? And then the politicians were like, "Oh,
that's
free
just a
trade."
fact, man. Yeah, but like, okay, look, let's not act like China did.
No. But I'm just saying, yes. But I'm just saying that.
You know what I mean? Like,
we
I'm
did
not.
this to ourselves, right? And then we put ourselves into this situation, and we didn't have any long-term plans to deal with.
Not really, man. I mean, you're looking into it as in America wanted this to happen. Like, the Chinese are the ones that.
No, of course
I don't
not.
want
The
to say
plan, hold on.
smarter, but at
Nixon's
the end of the
plan,
day-
no. Nixon's plan, right, was to open up and liberalize the Chinese economy to win them over by free markets into capitalist liberal democracy. That was his plan. That's why he opened up with China. He thought that because communism and socialism had been on trial for the last 100 years in the West, that failed. And now the only remaining ideology that had survived was liberalism. And now Western liberalism was on trial. And he thought that if he could convince the Chinese with free trade, and that they would open up eventually to democracy and liberalism. That was his plan. Okay, to bring them into the neoliberal trade empire, essentially, and to bring them into the fold. And she's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to do my own shit. You know? So, I don't know. We should, look, at the very least, we should be smart enough not to let the Chinese buy land in America, right? If we can't buy land there, why are we letting them buy land here? Okay? I don't know.
Yeah, but like the big threat is not land, Gio. It's price.
No, it's
like,
of course
all
not.
The, you know,
but
like
just
the border.
apply that logic to everything up and down, right? The stratosphere, right? It's not just.
Yeah, you're right. But I'm saying the big threats they have. You are correct, Gio. What I'm saying is, but the biggest threat is that they have spies within the U.S. exporting all U.S. technology
and every
back to
citizen
China.
can be a spy as well. Yes, you know? Because they can threaten their family at home. Yes, we've seen this on TikTok. We've seen this on WeChat. We know what they're
Or
capable
maybe they're
of,
just
and Americans
patriots,
don't
man.
fucking care because
Maybe
they'd
they're
rather
just
virtue
patriots.
signal.
Nah.
Huh?
Or maybe
Say
they're
again?
just patriots, man. I mean, we keep y'all
Or
keep
maybe they're
saying this
patriots.
all that
Right.
fact
Or
and it
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. There's, did you see San Francisco when fucking Xi Jinping came here? There were more commie flags than fucking American flags in San Francisco that day. The fuck is this? Bro, Americans are like the same cucks. The Dutch traders who kowtowed to the Chinese emperor to do trade and get access to trade with the East ahead of the Portuguese, the Dutch, the English. They were willing to bow, and the other 3-4 weren't. And then the Dutch were like, wait, so all I have to do is bow down to them, and then I get to trade with you guys first? Fuck yeah, right? That's the American mentality. It's
Yeah.
Dutch mercantilism. They're willing to kowtow. They're willing to bend the knee. They're willing to do whatever it takes to maintain their liberal empire. They have no value. They have no God. They have no virtue. Everything, money is their God.
Yeah. So
Equality is
shout out
their
to the
God.
TikTok deal. Yeah. Look, I see America is fighting back a little bit. Shout out to that TikTok bill. Shout out to, and it's weird, like I said, man, y'all take Trump for this shit, and then you do it yourself, man. These Democrats are like, yo, weird people, if you ask me. You attack a person for doing literally the same thing.
Dude, this is nothing new. This is
But at the other hand, what I'm gonna say,
a very long time. Okay, this is like, look, Clinton used to call George H.W. Bush.
yeah, even I get it, you're right.
Yeah,
Even the whole deportation thing.
Yeah. The Haiti immigration policy. Trust me, like they're so repetitive. I can't believe people are still
Obama's
going after Kavanaugh. Was like them going after Clarence Thomas with Anita Hill. I'm sorry. Nothing new under the fucking sun with these Democrats, bro. It's like they used to say, bro. You know how they allow immigrants into this country? Do you know in the 1850s in New York and all the major cities, Democrats used to wait for Irish immigrants to come up to vote and say, hey, I'll give you a place to sleep and food if you vote for Democrat for the rest of your life. And they would.
So, you know what? The other reason I am... Okay, look, Gio, I wanna be honest with you. I want to tell you something. China has flooded the market with so much cheap platinum that companies all over the world, even small startup mining companies, are literally like making losses, like literally shutting down and getting bankrupt like nobody's business. Like the truth is, I'm not saying the US wouldn't do the same thing with their position, but the Chinese are. They're in a position where they can destroy even companies that know in my country. So that's my thing, bruh. And so I'll be honest with you, I'm really more pro as being in a position where they can maybe empower Vietnamese, or at least some level of competition. Chinese can be at least reduced within the amount of, because especially in mining, they have a lot of power there. One thing I think we can try to do is siphon off their food importation, right? Limit the amount of fish and whatnot they have, and then say, we won't give you this fish until you increase the amount of platinum you're willing to sell. So lately kind of regulate the amount of sales on metals. Because the way I see right now, London stock has changed. The London Metal Exchange does not have any power anymore. The Chinese have greatly beat the market. And that's what I'm saying. You guys are talking about things that you don't notice how you've already lost somewhat in a way, because they're really playing outside of your market anymore. So the amount of money that you see people saying this is how much platinum costs, the Chinese are just gonna sell that for like 10% of the price, and they can do that. You know what I mean? Because most of the time there will be, even in Africa, for example, where they are the means of production within their own company, so they sell to themselves when they're in Africa, in the DRC and wherever, right? And then you also notice the fact that like Rwanda, the drones they're using to kill a lot of like DRC people, all those guns were made in China and Russia. You know what I mean? All these guns that are just flowing around killing people in Africa, they're all made from Russia and China. So, it doesn't take long to. I'm saying they're loyal to themselves. Everyone's loyal to themselves.
No, but look, like this is
I'm
the
also
debate
being
that.
loyal to myself.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but like this strain of liberal, like, what would you say, economics and trade policies is just literally in American DNA. So this is Thomas Jefferson and John Adams debating what kind of trade treaties they should have with different countries. And Adams is arguing that if other countries are being monopolizing or doing embargoes or not being fair to us, we should do the exact same thing to him. And then Jefferson's like, nah, man, we should just be free trade no matter what. You know, and take the laws, and that is better in the long term. So, here you go.
Tended to in Europe, but force. But Jefferson, the enlightened dreamer, hadn't given up. In 1785, he asked Adams what he thought of his draft of a model treaty to be presented to the courts of England and France. He admitted that the treaty went beyond our powers, and beyond the powers of Congress, too. But unfortunately, it also went beyond the powers of possibility. It was truly radical. It not only proposed the free flow of commerce between the two signatory nations, but also provided that the intercourse between all the subjects and citizens of the two parties shall be free and unrestrained. While traveling in each other's territory, the peoples of each nation would be considered to every intent and purpose as members of the nation where they are, entitled to all the protections, rights, and advantages of the natives of the other nation, but without any requirement for religious conformity. The signatory nations might confine their public offices to natives. Otherwise, this treaty that placed natives and aliens on an equal footing promised a mutuality of citizenship among nations. It was the fulfillment of an enlightened vision of a world that would exist virtually without borders. Adams politely told Jefferson that his model treaty was a fine, idealistic effort, but unfortunately it was not appropriate to the realities of European politics. We must not, my friend, be the bubbles of our own liberal sentiments. If we cannot obtain reciprocal liberality, we must adopt reciprocal prohibitions, exclusions, monopolies, and imposts. Our offers have been fair, more than fair. If they are rejected, we must not be dupes. By 1787, Adams had become convinced, as he told Jefferson, that neither philosophy, religion, nor morality, nor wisdom, nor interest will ever govern nations or parties against their vanity, their pride, their resentments or revenges, or their avarice or ambitions. Nothing but force and power and strength can restrain them. In ascribing personal passions to nations in this peculiar manner, Adams was merely expressing his deepening understanding of himself and his fellow human beings. In the end, Adams's realism turned out to be more accurate than Jefferson's enlightened vision. Only 3 states, Sweden, Prussia, and Morocco, peripheral powers with little overseas trade, agreed to sign liberal commercial treaties with the United States, none of which involved more than most favored nation commercial relations. Most European states were indifferent to the Americans' enlightened ideas of commerce, ignorant, said Jefferson, to the power of American commerce.
So Jefferson wanted a global democracy trade network where all the democratic countries in the world would allow other people to vote in their own countries. So that the British and the Australians could vote in America. So that Chinese can vote in America. This is true free trade that Jefferson wanted to create in America and the world. He was the first American exceptionalist in America. He wanted to spread American democracy to the rest of the world, and that it was predestined, that it was just a matter of time, that it was a new era of democratic liberalism. And unfortunately, we don't do embargoes like we should. We don't use our economic power like we should, our strength like we should. You know, we could be like China. You know, that's what we should be doing, in my opinion.
But you got to understand, it's still a unified system. That's what you're failing to see. That America is the right hand, China is the left hand.
I don't disagree. Yeah, they're the industrial base. I hear you. But even we have to import Chinese fucking STEM people because we don't have enough. We can't produce.
I know, but I wondered about that too. And I said to an Indian once in my building, I organized what was called the Chicago Startup Club, and we built all these apps, and it was a collective of all these H-1B visa Indian software developers that wanted to be startup entrepreneurs. And so I partnered with one of them, and I said, "How is there so many engineers in this building?" He said, "There's a 1.4 billion Indians. 10% of the population are engineers. That's the reason why there's so many fucking Indians in Chicago and in this building. They all worked for Boeing, for every major corporation on Wall Street."
Right, but we didn't do that. We didn't incentivize it. You know, England does. We don't. We give you free will, free choice. You can go to lesbian dance theory.
What I'm saying is the major corporations in America cannot run without Indian brain power. It's a fact.
But that's exactly. I don't disagree with you, and that's a problem for Americans, for their own self-interest, that they can't have to fucking rely on other people.
It's not. It's a benefit. The Indians want to stay here.
Of course it's a benefit. No. Of course it's a benefit to us, right? Of course it's a benefit to us in the short term, right? But it's a problem that as the country on the left hand, like you're saying, if China's the left hand and we're the right hand isn't even able to do what it's supposed to be doing without help from the
You gotta understand, we need more intelligentsia in this country.
Yes, but we have the ability to produce it and we fucking don't.
I get that. It's not easy. It's not easy.
Hold up. Edmund. It is easy. Get rid of all these liberal faggotry. That's it. Right? Turn these institutions back into...
I know, but what I'm trying to say is...
Get rid of affirmative action. Get rid of all this shit, and within 5-10 years, I guarantee you, everything will be changed. Okay? For the most part.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Dude,
you're right. I'm just...
You know, look, I was talking to a charter principal from the 80s who used to run a charter school in the 80s who was retired. And he said, look, if I could have just kicked out all the kids that were problems without any pushback from anyone, including the law, it would have made my job a lot easier. They wouldn't let me kick out people. The board, the teachers, the parents. You know, it's like, if you can't even kick out the problem kids at your own fucking school, what power do you really even have, Republican, as a college president, when a bunch of students can threaten you in your own fucking university, and you're too scared to...
It sounds like the script to Animal House. What I'm trying to say is nothing is new under the sun. Nothing is new, and everything that has already been.
Hold up, stop saying that, bro. Look, this is our civilization. This is our time, right? I don't care about every other country in the history of the world. I don't care that everything's a revolution, right? We have the ability to change this in this country, and we're choosing not to. It's that fucking simple. Everything else you're gonna say is a fucking...
I agree, but it's still about the personal level. If you want peace in the world, if you want education in the world, you have to start with the self.
Nobody disagrees with that, but we have a lack of that. Nobody cares about aesthetics. Nobody cares about working out. Nobody cares about all the things that used to be pushed culturally. Nobody cares about it.
Well, I go to the gym every day. I see hundreds of people that are working out.
We've destroyed the OS, the culture, the rituals, the religion, passing of things down to the next generation. We've disrupted and destroyed the operating system of our society. We're running on fumes. We have destroyed it ourselves, little by little, slice by slice. And then you're like, well, we can just do it. No, you can't. What are you talking about?